Chapter 176. He harbored no wishes. Tired, with a soft utterance, Emperor Qinji drew the curtains tightly, extinguished the lights, and closed his deep-set eyes. Following recent events, he felt no trace of drowsiness. The room sank into profound darkness, images of her insisting on spending time alone with him. In front of the 8 others persistently surfaced in his mind. But I can't sleep. She tightened her embrace around his waist, nuzzling her face against his abdomen, her thoughts drifting to whimsical fantasies. Emperor Qinji's throat, simmering with emotion, stirred slightly as he grappled with an internal conflict. "Then I'll keep you company," he murmured after a brief struggle. She shifted back, nestling her head in the crook of his neck, her hands exploring his face in the shadows, her soft lips inching closer, ready to kiss him in the dark. Suddenly, she seemed to recall something, her movements halting abruptly. Emperor Qinji could already sense the warmth of Lu Ruan's breath, her gentle exhalations caressing his neck, stirring his heart. "Chen Chen," a languorous voice echoed in the darkness. Qinji's voice rose slightly, his entire being taut with anticipation. "Do you know how?" She hesitated, recalling past experiences with Qin Feng, and after a moment's deliberation, she leaned closer to his ear to inquire about a specific detail. Emperor Qinji's gaze darkened abruptly, the darkness concealing his unease. Unable to maintain his composure, he refrained from answering her question and instead grasped her hand. In the dark, she let out a subtle sigh of relief. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. It wasn't as terrifying as she had imagined. Unable to contain a groan, Emperor Qinji's breath quickened, his blood surging with fervor as he leaned in to kiss Lu Ruan in the darkness. The sound of their mingling breaths rang out starkly in the silent blackness. Soon, the sound of tearing fabric accompanied by sensual gasps filled the air. A passionate entanglement unfolded. In their world, only each other remained, both sinking into the depths of love. The sensations in the dark intensified, Emperor Qinji's ice-blue eyes swirling with desire while she languidly moaned. "Chen Chen, I didn't expect you to be so skilled on your first time." Emperor Qinji replied in a husky voice. It was unclear how much time had passed. At last, a small, cheerful voice echoed in her mind. "Congratulations, host. You and Emperor Qinji have successfully marked each other, establishing a contractual bond." Emperor Qinji lingered atop her for a few seconds, regaining his composure before turning on the lights. He instructed the robotic maid to tidy the master bedroom. Then he lifted Lu Ruan and carried her to the bathroom. By this time, the outside world was already bathed in bright daylight. In the misty bathroom, she and Emperor Qinji stood face to face under the cascading water, droplets splashing against his sculpted form, resembling a vibrant oil painting. A sense of exquisite aloofness mingled with an undeniable sensuality emanated from him. Due to their height difference, when she didn't look up, all she could see was Emperor Qinji's chest. "Chen Chen, could you please scrub my back?" "Of course." His voice was rough and husky. He squeezed out some body wash, rubbed it between his hands, then stepped behind Lu Ruan, his palms gliding over her porcelain back as he began to massage gently. She reveled in the service of her princely husband in the past. It was likely others who attended to Emperor Qinji. Now, he was devotedly attending to her. The sensation was delightful. While she relished his attentiveness, she inquired in her mind, "Little dumpling, check Emperor Qinji's current wishes." "Host, Emperor Qinji currently has no wishes." "What?" She paused for a moment. "Little dumpling, please check the wishes of all 9 of my husbands, including those related to me." She wished to discern the innermost thoughts of the 9 men and whether any new desires had emerged over the 9 years. "Understood, host." "Davidson's current wishes." In her mind echoed the buzzing voice of Little Dumpling. After a brief interval, the report of all the men's wishes concluded. "There are too many. I can't remember them all. Please compile a list for me." Little Dumpling promptly presented a list. With her eyes gently closed, she focused her consciousness on it. Category consisted of wishes that could yield wish power, while category contained wishes related to her that did not. Davidson, shortened to 185 centimeters. Ensure my wife's longevity. Luo Yao, hopes Davidson can ensure my wife's longevity. Kodong, hopes Davidson can ensure my wife's longevity. Heijin Yuan, abolish the single tax for all interstellar scavengers. Hopes Davidson can ensure my wife's longevity. Heijin Yen, abolish the single tax for all interstellar scavengers. Hopes Davidson can ensure my wife's longevity. Heijin Yi, abolish the single tax for all interstellar scavengers. Hopes Davidson can ensure my wife's longevity. Qin Feng, hopes my wife loves me a bit more. Samuel, hopes my wife will love me forever, regardless of my appearance. Emperor Qinji, hopes to be happy with my wife for a lifetime. Having reviewed the list, she began to formulate a plan. The issue of her husband's height was particularly challenging. She couldn't possibly shorten his legs, so she chose to forego that wish. Most of her husband's most fervent desires revolved around her longevity. It seemed their wishes, after 9 years, remained unchanged, a testament to the deep-seated obsession within their hearts. One could understand this, especially since their adoptive father had passed away due to the single tax, leaving a lingering pain. To abolish the single tax for interstellar scavengers, one must ascend to the pinnacle of power. In other words, she must become the interstellar empress. Only then would she have the authority to alter societal systems, her sole option, campaigning for the position of interstellar empress and ensuring she secured the throne. Becoming empress was not something she could achieve merely through effort. She would require the unwavering support of her princely husbands to have any hope of being elected. Chun. Just as she called out to Emperor Chenji, she suddenly turned and met his gaze, which was anything but innocent, filled with profound desire. A man's longing for a woman. Darling, I want. Emperor Chenji's voice was low and husky, as if scorched by the flames of desire, revealing an irresistible yearning. His towering figure of 199 centimeters appeared especially alluring in the dim light, droplets gliding down his well-defined muscles, the white towel gently brushing against him, leaving behind subtle traces of moisture. His gaze was ardent and profound, fixated on her, as if he wished to consume her entirely. She couldn't help but cough lightly, attempting to mask her own restlessness. Put on some clothes and let's return to the room. We can talk there. She averted her gaze from Emperor Chenji, as if avoiding his overwhelming desire. Return to the room to continue? His stern countenance lifted slightly, a barely perceptible smile flickered at the corners of his mouth. Lu Ruan hesitated for a moment before nodding. Emperor Chenji swiftly discarded the towel draped over his shoulder, his movements decisive and fluid. The towel arced through the air before being secured around his waist, perfectly showcasing his taut physique. She swallowed hard. Then, Emperor Chenji retrieved a new towel, quickly wrapping it around her. He lifted her effortlessly and returned to the master bedroom, which had been freshly outfitted with new bedding. He gently placed her on the expansive circular bed, followed closely by his muscular form enveloping her. Once again, an indescribable day unfolded. Chapter 177. She decided to run for election. Having indulged in a moment of passion, Chenji found himself awakened as night descended. She propped herself up on his chest, gazing down at his elegantly relaxed form, and at last discerned a look of satisfaction etched upon his strikingly handsome features. Chun. It's dark now, and I'm feeling a bit peckish. Let us rise for breakfast. Chenji rose, donned his attire, his tall frame resembling a stately pine, and the royal garb he wore exuded an air of unassailable nobility, starkly contrasting with his earlier, carefree demeanor. She mused quietly, such is the nature of men, that when adorned in clothing, they transform into entirely different beings. What are you pondering? Chenji inquired as he bent down to lift Lu Ruan from the bed. Unlike the first time he had cradled her, where she was awkwardly positioned, he now executed a perfectly refined princess carry. She wrapped her arms around his neck, lost in thoughts of him. Chenji smiled faintly, his step steady as he exited the chamber, traversing the corridor toward the staircase. Chun. I have resolved to participate in the election. His pace faltered momentarily. Are you certain? Without hesitation, she affirmed, absolutely. Very well. His stride quickened, and a sense of joy radiated from him. Upon descending, they found the living room occupied by a group of men, 8 in total, who appear to have been waiting for quite some time.
Wife. Sister.
Their expressions softened at the sight of her. Chun, please set me down. Yet Chenji did not immediately comply. Instead, he found a vacant seat, settling her upon his lap. She gazed into his eyes and, for a fleeting moment, detected a glimmer of possessiveness within his icy blue gaze, though it vanished upon closer inspection. A subtle smile graced his lips, his austere visage softening. I am hungry, Chenji declared to the other men. Davidson instructed the robotic maid, and soon, dinner was served at the table. The men, who had earlier lacked appetite, now found their hunger returning in her presence. The 10 of them rose and gathered around the dining table to partake in their meal. She consumed what would typically equate to 2 portions, while Chenji adhered to his customary practice of stopping at 7/10 full. His mannerisms of eating, graceful and pleasing to the eye, set him apart from the others. Ku Dongqin, the rugged brute, and He Jinyi, the epitome of elegance. Indeed, royalty is discerning. Lu Ruan's gaze lingered on Chenji a moment longer, prompting He Jinyi, feeling disgruntled, to interject and draw her attention. One, since you're on the main star, why not accompany us to Hei Ming Star for a visit? Yi, I intend to run for Empress. So, I must remain home to study with Ah Chen. Perhaps next year, I shall join you on Hei Ming Star. Hei Jin Yi raised an eyebrow. Are you certain about your decision? Yes, she nodded firmly, adding, I hope to be elected in 10 months. Qin Feng, upon hearing this significant news, perked up, his sharp eyes gleaming. Little Lu Ruan, I support your candidacy. If you ascend to the throne, then Hei Jin Yi, the federal army, and the Hei Ming Star Shadow Organization can maintain peace. She smiled brightly. I shall do my utmost. At that moment, the previously silent Kedong spoke up. Aspiring to be empress is no trivial matter. You will face numerous challenges. However, Di Qinji, as a prince who has been close to the empress for years, should dedicate himself to assisting his wife. Di Qinji turned to Kedong. Understood. I will take charge of this matter. He then gently patted her hand. Darling, the study on the second floor has been renovated. Starting tomorrow, you will learn interstellar history with me. All right, I am counting on you. After dinner, the 10 of them gathered in the living room to discuss her campaign. The men exchanged ideas and strategies, each contributing their thoughts. Lu Ruan felt a swell of warmth in her heart, surrounded by the men who cared for her. Among the billion women across the galaxy, the top 100 on the social contribution list were predominantly matriarchs of esteemed families, paired with men of significant repute. Following Hei Ming Star's detachment from the Federation, their contributions would not be counted. The contributions of Qin Feng, Davidson, Kedong, and Samuel would be pivotal. Hei Jin Yi rose from the sofa, crossed over to Lu Ruan, nudged Luo Yao aside, and seated himself next to her, continuing Wan. You should enter the election system and submit your identity information to see where you rank in contributions. Elections are held every 20 years, and the system opens for submissions a year before the elections. Interstellar women wishing to participate need only submit their identity information, and the system will automatically calculate the contributions of their matches, producing a ranking of the top 100 women. Those in the top 100 qualify for the Empress election examination. The top 10 candidates become contenders for Empress, engaging in live broadcasts for speeches, with the next Empress chosen by popular vote among the citizens. She activated her holographic brain, assisted by Hei Jin Yi, and logged into the election system, submitting her identity information. Submission successful. Calculating social contribution. Please do not exit the system page. She waited 10 seconds, but the loading was sluggish. The longer she waited, the more contributions must be attributed to her matches. She anticipated a wait of several minutes. It seems you will need to be patient, Di Qinji explained lowly from her other side, as the others leaned in, eager to glimpse the outcome. Everyone, you needn't crowd, she said, enlarging the projection onto the middle of the room, prompting the men to draw back, their eyes focused on the progressing percentage. Loading. 55. 56. Dear sister, you will surely make the list. I just wonder where you will place. Hei Jin Yi remarked thoughtfully. The names ranked higher would attract more attention from the citizens, garnering more votes from passers-by. Di Chunji interjected with insider information. This year, Mother Empress stated that to ensure fairness, the 10 Empress candidates during next year's election will conduct their speeches anonymously and in disguise. Their names and faces will remain concealed. This is advantageous for you, Ruan. Hei Jin Yi mused, a sly smile gracing his features. If I can secure a spot in the top 10 and become a candidate, the citizens will not dismiss my candidacy due to my youth and unfamiliarity, she pondered, grasping the implication of Hei Jin Ye's words. But if Ruan reveals herself and her name is known, wouldn't the 50 billion unattached men not cast their votes for her? Hei Jin Yi raised a valid concern. Di Qinji replied if that were the case, the other candidates would simply call into question the integrity of the election and unite to demand her disqualification. As discussions unfolded, the loading progress reached 100, and the ranking results materialized before her. Chapter 178. Their contribution ratio. The moment the rankings were revealed, Lu Ruan's expression was one of disbelief, her heart racing with astonishment. The men present reacted with varying emotions. Luo Yao exuded pride and contentment. Di Qinji displayed a hint of surprise, seemingly taken aback by the outcome. Hei Jin Yi regarded Qin Feng with a thoughtful expression, as if contemplating something, and Hei Jin Yi scrutinized Kedong with a discerning gaze. In response to the scrutiny, Kedong's lips curled slightly, revealing an enigmatic smile. On the projection, the top 100 women in terms of social contributions appeared, ranking.
No, một, Đài Lan Si.
Contribution value, 300,000. Number 2, Lu Ruan, contribution value, 260,000. Number 3. Qiao Shi, contribution value, 210,000. Number 4. Anya, with a contribution value of 210,000. Number 5. Seng Yao Yao, with a contribution value of 200,000. Lu Ruan has remarkably secured the second position on the leaderboard. Her name is highlighted in bold red, making it especially conspicuous, while the other names in the top 10 are also bolded and highlighted, yet aside from Terengsi, Lu Ruan shines the brightest. The ranking of my sister is unexpectedly high, Luo Yao marveled. This is all your hard work. After the rankings were revealed, she clicked on her name to view the detailed contribution breakdown. Social contribution value, 260,000. Contribution ratio from matchmakers, Jin Feng, 60, Davidson, 15, Kadong, 15, Samuel, 5. Luo Yao, 4, Di Chenji, 1, He Jin Yen, invalid, He Jin Yi, invalid, He Jin Yuan, invalid. This contribution value is calculated based on the social contributions made by men over the past 20 years. Qin Feng has led troops to explore and develop a colossal planet over the years, and prior to matching with her, he accomplished many significant feats. Securing the highest contribution value, Davidson has saved numerous patients during these years, also achieving a commendable value. Kudong established an exploration association, unified industry standards, and guided countless adventurers in completing numerous tasks on affiliated planets, contributing significantly to society. Samuel has been living off past achievements. Luo Yao has mingled with Kudong, contributing a portion. Di Chenji has assisted the queen with administrative affairs over the years, although this help is not counted in the contribution value. His external activities account for the one in the ratio. She exited the details and closed her light brain, gazing at her circle of companions. She contemplated the upcoming election exam in 10 months. Pausing for a moment, like a fragile fawn, she gently bit her lip. And then her gaze gradually strengthened as she resolutely declared, "Starting tomorrow, I will rise at 6 a.m. and retire at 11 p.m., aside from meals. I shall dedicate all my time to studying with Ah Chen. If there are no urgent matters, please do not disturb me." Upon finishing her words, Lu Ruan noticed the slight furrow in Qin Feng's brow, revealing his concern. "Focus on your studies. I will prepare medicinal meals for you every day to enhance your memory," Davidson said, offering her a reassuring pat on the shoulder, encouraging her to study with peace of mind. Kudong raised an eyebrow, his lips still curling with that enigmatic smile, choosing to remain silent. A glimmer of appreciation flickered in Di Chenji's eyes, but it quickly returned to calm as he nodded. "Very well, I will dedicate myself to teaching you." Luo Yao interjected, "Sister, remember to take breaks when you feel fatigued from studying." Samuel gazed at her tenderly, "Softy, if you intend to focus on your studies, I plan to return to Capistar tomorrow." His tone was calm and casual, masking the reluctance he felt inside.
Huh.
She looked up in surprise, her eyes filled with confusion. Why the sudden trip back? "I need to take the half-finished research from the base to the mechanical building to continue the latter part of my studies. Additionally, the apprentices in the building have been seeking my guidance quite frequently these past 2 years, so I will go to personally address their queries." "Oh, I see. When do you plan to return?" She regarded the handsome man with a sense of reluctance. Samuel pondered for a moment before replying, "Well, probably in a few months." His voice was slightly subdued, hinting at his own reluctance to be away from her for so long. He Jin Yen and He Jin Yi sat quietly. Although their contribution values were invalid, they remained her most steadfast support. Lu Ruan, being a person of strong execution, exchanged a few words with them before leading Di Chenji upstairs to study. Upon reaching the end of the corridor, on the second floor, Di Chenji raised his wrist and gently tapped the smart recognition area on the door with his light brain. With a soft click, the door swung open. She stepped inside, and a wave of refreshing, slightly electronic air enveloped her, replacing the traditional scent of ink. A crystal desk stood at the center, accompanied by a black swivel chair in front of it. Surrounding walls were not solid but rather intelligent glass curtain walls. They typically displayed a soft matte gray, providing a sense of privacy, but once activated, they could instantly transform into ultra-high-definition displays, showcasing vast starry skies, serene forests, or even projecting work interfaces, turning the entire space into an immersive digital environment. An air purifier operated quietly, releasing clean air imbued with a faint woody fragrance. "Darling, please have a seat," Di Chenji said, bending down to pull out the chair for her. As she settled into her seat, Di Chunji pressed a button on his smart pen. The intelligent glass walls surrounding them transformed into a scene of polluted ruins. Di Chunji's metallic voice resonated in the study, melodious and engaging, captivating her attention. In the upcoming election exam in October, focusing on the examination of interstellar history, we will begin from the period following the end of the Wasteland Era. The mutated humans of the Wasteland Era successfully explored a planet suitable for human habitation beyond the Wasteland Star, marking the commencement of interstellar travel. She listened intently to the precious images on the wall, absorbing Di Chunji's narration. His explanations were clear, and she effortlessly recorded the knowledge in her mind. Time slipped by unnoticed as Lu Ruan found herself immersed in a sea of knowledge, hours having passed in what felt like moments, rubbing her slightly sore eyes. She turned to Di Chunji, who remained engrossed in his explanations, the light illuminating his profile in a way that accentuated his handsome features. "How much of what I said did you manage to memorize?" Di Chunji observed Lu Ruan's fatigue and paused. 2/3. "Good, let's take a break." Di Chunji nodded slightly, pulling out a chair to sit beside her. "Am I learning a bit slowly?" she ventured, her gaze gradually settling into his eyes. "This is a normal pace. There is no need to rush." Di Chunji replied with a gentle smile, his voice as soothing as a spring breeze. "My dear, your learning speed is quite impressive, yet it still falls short." He needed to devise a way for her to grasp the extensive knowledge in a short time. A glint of determination flashed in Di Chunji's eyes. Chapter 179. Is she pregnant? As she took a brief respite, she meticulously organized the knowledge Di Chunji had just imparted in her mind. Closing her eyes, she allowed her thoughts to replay like a film in her mind. Not overlooking a single detail, fully immersing herself in contemplation and forgetting everything around her. With a deeper understanding and analysis of the material, the once vague concepts Di Chunji had mentioned became clearer, and connections she had previously overlooked began to surface. The study was enveloped in silence. Di Chunji refrained from interrupting her, allowing her to digest the information. Time passed by, and before long, 10 minutes had slipped away. She opened her eyes, gazing at the colorful images adorning the walls. The month she had just traversed was merely an introduction to interstellar knowledge. Now, in preparation for the election exam, she was engaging in systematic learning of interstellar history alongside her prince husband. In that moment, her sense of belonging to this world intensified. Di Chunji observed Lu Ruan quietly, having crafted a teaching plan in his mind, eagerly awaiting its implementation. In a mere 10 months, he hoped she would persevere. The individuals ranking in the top 10 of the social contribution leaderboard were formidable competitors. To stand out among them, she would require unwavering dedication. "Darling, have you rested well?" he asked gently. She turned and smiled at him. "Yes, I am ready. Let us continue our studies." Di Chunji rose, resuming his explanations. "His reservoir of knowledge is vast. Regrettably, it is she who is to be examined, not him. He can only exert himself to transfer the wealth of information from his mind into hers. Nevertheless, he finds great solace in her eagerness to learn." Lu Ruan's soft eyes once again followed the gestures of Di Chunji's hand, her attention captivated by the images before him. On the first floor, under the brilliance of the lights, Kodong, Luo Yao, Qin Feng, and the trio known as the Three Blacks are comfortably seated on plush sofas, engaged in cheerful conversation. The tall figures of the men are illuminated by the light, creating a heartwarming and harmonious tableau. "Isn't it rather late for sister to still be out? Should we call for her?" Luo Yao hesitates. Kodong interjects. "Do not disturb her. She said not to interrupt unless necessary." The study and bedroom of Di Chunji are interconnected, and Soft One may already be resting in bed, so perhaps we should take our leave as well. He Jinyi shifts his posture, crossing his legs. After sipping his juice, an idea strikes him, and he instructs He Jinyi. "Please have your subordinates procure some fresh exotic fruits from the dark underworld star for Juan to enjoy as juice." Without hesitation, He Jinyi activates his communicator. Contacting the high command of their organization, within a day, gather the finest exotic fruits from the dark underworld star and transport 100 pounds to Alpha Star. Meanwhile, the higher-ups on the dark underworld star wear expressions of exasperation. He Jinyi follows up. "If there are any interruptions, dispatch more warships. Let us see if these Federation forces dare to obstruct us." As the dark underworld star has recently achieved autonomy from the 8 major stars, any warship departing from there would be intercepted by the Federation forces. He cannot allow his wife's exotic fruits to be seized. As soon as He Jinyi issues the command, the dark underworld star buzzes with activity. Rare fruits are collected, and soon thousands of warships set out, densely packed, transporting 100 pounds of fresh fruit towards Alpha Star. Meanwhile, Kudong issues his own orders within the Exploration Association, instructing explorers to deliver the most tender exotic beasts from the subsidiary stars. Once the beasts arrive at the main star, he plans to hand them over to Davidson, who will prepare gourmet meals for his wife. Downstairs, the men are focused on nourishing Lu Ruan. Up in her study, Lu Ruan is tireless in her studies. As days pass, her meals rival those of royalty, and this celestial life accelerates her accumulation of knowledge like a rocket. A month later, she languidly sits at the dining table, accepting the offerings from her husbands. Di Chunji presents her with exotic beast meat, which she bites into, savoring it slowly. Suddenly, a wave of nausea washes over her, and her stomach churns violently. She retches. Di Chunji picks up a piece of meat the size of a thumb and looks at it, his attractive brows furrowing. Davidson, what kind of meat did you prepare today? Davidson, taken aback, turns his gaze to Kudong. Kudong, what kind of beast did you provide me today?
Kudong,
who supplies Davidson with beasts daily, ensures they are free of toxins and rich in nutrition, selecting only the most tender meat to cook for his wife, varying the dishes to prevent her from growing weary of the same fare. It's a newly discovered exotic beast from the subsidiary star, Kudong replies, quickly checking on Lu Ruan, who has yet to recover. He lifts another type of exotic meat from the table and offers it to her. My dear, this is your favorite exotic beast meat. It should cleanse your palate. The previous one was new and perhaps unfamiliar to you, which is why it caused you discomfort. After sipping some water, she extends her bowl to accept the meat from Kudong. However, as she brings the meat to her mouth, the aroma of the greasy meat wafts up, and her stomach churns anew. She retches again. Sensing the situation is amiss, Davidson quickly sets aside his utensils and carries her to the medical chamber in the storeroom on the first floor. He activates the scanning program. Scanning target.
1.
Scanning target. 2. Scan successful. Davidson examines the readings displayed on the instrument, his pupils contracting in astonishment. She looks at her husband, the dazed director, with confusion. Arson, what is wrong with me? Soft you. Davidson regains his composure, his lips trembling with excitement as he stutters. You are pregnant. Lu Ruan's initial disbelief transforms into an uncontrollable joy, her face lighting up with a radiant smile, her dimples appearing. She drinks the potion Davidson presents, the peculiar liquid coursing down her throat and into her belly, alleviating her nausea.
I am pregnant.
Davidson, overwhelmed with joy, can scarcely contain his smile, feeling elated beyond measure. Next year, he will become a father. At that moment, the others gather outside the storeroom. Kudong carries a platter of fruit. Luo Yao holds a glass of creamy fruit juice, and the rest bear various anti-nausea remedies. Davidson, what is wrong with her? Chapter 180. She is to undergo embryo implantation. Davidson suppresses his smile, adjusting his glasses as he glances at the worried faces of Kudong and the others. Clearing his throat, he states earnestly, she is fine. It's just that I am going to be a father. Kudong's eyes widen slightly, his lips parting involuntarily, his facial muscles freezing as if paused.
What?
Davidson is going to be a father? No, it is he who is to become a father. Kudong unconsciously gazes at the woman emerging from the medical chamber. She is clad in a purple dress, languidly caressing her abdomen, her face aglow with joy, and within her dark, downcast eyes lies a hint of maternal tenderness. Is my wife really pregnant? Kudong inquires eagerly of Davidson, his voice rough as if sandpaper were scraping against wood, desperately seeking confirmation. Beside him, Luo Yao watches Davidson intently. The remaining men, He Jinyi and his companions, clench their fists, their breaths held in anticipation. Indeed, Davidson replies, his tone calm and assured. With those words, Kudong feels a surge of intense, fiery emotion erupt within him, sweeping through his limbs and compelling him to shout with joy. However, fearing it might startle her, he suppresses the urge, curling his fingers into a fist and pounding the wall, grinning like a fool. His physical prowess assures him that the child is undoubtedly his. He Jinyi, flushed with excitement, animatedly boasts to his two older brothers, his leather jacket swaying with his movements. Brother, did you hear? I'm going to be a father. Second brother, did you hear? I'm going to be a father. His brothers, He Jin and He Jun, exchange glances of disapproval, simultaneously pushing their younger sibling behind them. 1. Take care of yourself and rest well. No need to study so late, He Jin advises, his previously icy gaze softening into a warm glimmer. 1. Do you want some juice?
Hui UNESCO.
Lu Ruan nods at one brother and shakes her head at the other. Luo Yao and Qin Feng, lost in their thoughts, beam with joy. With Lu Ruan newly pregnant, the gender and biological father of the child remain unconfirmed, yet both men harbor an inexplicable certainty that the child is theirs. Davidson waved at the men blocking the doorway, urging, "Please do not obstruct the exit. Let Ruan through." Ku Dong and the others dispersed, while Davidson made his way to the kitchen. The other men returned to their seats on the sofa. Ruan joined them, positioning herself between the dignified Di Qinji on one side and Qin Feng on the other. "Darling, starting tomorrow, we need to adjust the study schedule." Di Qinji's long fingers instinctively brushed against Ruan's abdomen, his gaze imbued with both anticipation and tenderness. For 9 years, Qin Feng and the others had been unable to conceive with her. The child she carried must surely be his. He was to become a father next year. Caught between the unexpectedness of the news and a joy that was almost overwhelming, yet tinged with uncertainty. "Qinji, there's no need for adjustments. Tomorrow will proceed as usual." After a moment of joy, Ruan's rationality took over as she looked steadfastly at the noble man beside her. She recalled Davidson's exhilaration upon seeing the scan results, which concealed a hint of concern. Given her current condition, it was not suitable for her to carry a child. The director husband likely harbored worries regarding this issue. In the days ahead, she would be preoccupied with preparations for the election, intending to have the embryo implanted into a biological incubator for nurturing. If fortune favored her, she might witness the birth of her child next year. If misfortune struck, a mistake during the embryo extraction could lead to the embryo's demise, forcing her to bid farewell to the unformed child. With your present physical condition, intense studying is inadvisable. Your health is paramount. Di Qinji's eyes reflected deep concern. She smiled gently, grasped his hand, and firmly stated, "In 9 months, the election examination will take place. I cannot afford to slack off due to pregnancy. I plan to have the embryo implanted into the biological incubator." Davidson emerged from the kitchen, holding a bowl of meat broth, and upon hearing the mention of embryo implantation, paused for a moment before stepping forward. 1 month into pregnancy is the optimal time for implantation. If you are certain, I will arrange the surgery for you tomorrow. "Asen, please arrange the surgery for me," she said, looking up at the reserved and refined man approaching her. His eyes seemed to wrestle with something, but that struggle ultimately faded.
All right.
Davidson quickly approached her, pushing Qin Feng aside. He scooped a spoonful of the appropriately warm meat broth and brought it to her lips, gently urging Ruan. "Open your mouth." She complied, swallowing the broth without feeling nauseous, her stomach gradually filling. The men around her quietly observed, their gazes laced with a hint of struggle and hesitation. She chuckled lightly and addressed them, "I am currently busy with the election. Natural childbirth is not suitable for me." "Then let us schedule the surgery for tomorrow," Ku Dong said, his struggle evaporating as he spoke gently. "Let us proceed with the surgery," the other men echoed, their initial excitement giving way to reason. "My wife is preparing for the election and requires intensive study. We cannot allow the child to impede her progress." Yet they recalled her earlier words. She could choose to give birth or not, and even go a lifetime without having children. This child was particularly significant, likely their only one. They silently prayed for a successful implantation. "Davidson, if you dare to harm my child, I will kill you," He Jinyao warned Davidson, who stood beside Ruan.
Jinyao.
"Do not threaten Asen," Ruan interjected. "Please be careful during the surgery for my sister." Luo Yao then addressed Davidson. He cast a calm glance at the two, remaining silent. His own anxiety matched theirs. "Ruan, Xiao Heir has received many rare women. He has performed this type of surgery no less than 100 times. I will have him conduct your implantation tomorrow," Davidson said after feeding Ruan, contemplating for a moment. The thought of the embryo in her womb being his child rendered him unable to maintain absolute composure. He feared his hands might tremble if he were to perform the procedure himself. Since his nephew was an outsider, and his medical skills were top-notch within the interstellar realm, having him perform the surgery would increase the chances of success. Ruan recalled the young doctor who had performed her stomach cancer surgery when she first traversed into this world. A doctor whose features bore a striking resemblance to Davidson.
She nodded, "All right. Who is Xiao Heir?"
Qin Feng and the others, unaware of the situation, inquired. "My nephew," Davidson replied, opening his holographic device to contact Dai Wei Heir. The following morning, Ruan lay in Davidson's hospital operating room, surrounded by advanced medical equipment. Beside her stood a doctor resembling Davidson, clad in a white surgical gown, his eyes reflecting an inexplicable sentiment. She smiled at him, Xiao Air, don't feel pressured. Dai Wei Air smiled back, his voice clear and reassuring. The surgery will conclude in half an hour. There's no need for you to be anxious. I will ensure the successful implantation of your embryo. Dai Wei Air did not address her as aunt nor refer to the embryo in her womb as sister. She paused, but said nothing in response, simply closing her eyes. Noticing this, Dai Wei Air's expression turned serious as he began administering anesthesia to Ruan, and the surgery commenced. Outside the operating room, Davidson and the others felt their hearts suspended in trepidation. Chapter 181. Who is the father of the child? In the interstellar world, medical technology has reached astonishing heights. Doctors no longer rely solely on traditional scalpels or forceps. Instead, they utilize precision instruments to assist in surgeries. Dai Wei Air meticulously operated a complex device, his fingers deftly dancing across the control panel with precision and confidence. Yet beneath his calm exterior lay a tumult of emotions. For this was the most undesirable surgery he had encountered in his career, yet one he could not evade. The woman lying on the operating table had skin as pale as snow, a serene and beautiful visage, lips slightly parted, with long hair cascading like a waterfall over the table. Under the influence of anesthesia, her eyes fluttered shut, and her lengthy eyelashes cast delicate shadows on her eyelids. Resembling a sleeping beauty, Dai Wei Air glanced at Ruan's tranquil form before shifting his gaze to the display panel, where the words XX-type embryo-free DNA analysis in progress flickered. He took a deep breath, striving to calm his racing heart. Interstellar women preparing for pregnancy typically desire daughters. Upon detecting a female fetus, they opt for natural childbirth. Male fetuses are preferred for machine incubation. He was extracting embryos from a purebred woman who, despite carrying a female fetus, had chosen machine incubation. While purebred genes are highly compatible and the embryos resulting from hybrid unions exhibit stability, the risks of failure remain for machine incubation. Generally, among 100 healthy male fetuses selected by interstellar couples for incubation, only 80 survive to the following year, an 80 survival rate. This particular fetus was the first female embryo in nearly 30 years across the entire star system. Whether the incubation would succeed remained uncertain. As he operated, he kept an eye on the display panel, which read, XX-type embryo-free DNA analysis in progress. Half an hour later, he successfully transferred Ruan's embryo into a new container. Beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Having safely extracted it and sent it to the incubation center, he hoped for its survival. He carefully cradled a glass-sized container filled with a green liquid, housing the small XX-type embryo. After a few glances at the container, he placed it inside an incubator. I never imagined you would have a child with your uncle, Dai Wei Air thought, his gaze lingering on the still unconscious Ruan. Momentarily forgetting the DNA analysis results he had been monitoring, he scrutinized her face, marked by the passage of time, inch by inch. Compared to their first encounter, there was an added allure to her demeanor. Their genetic compatibility stood at an astounding 999, and he had waited for 9 years. Yet there was still no news of her reapplying for a match. As one of the last remaining hybrid beings with exotic plant genes across the entire star system, he could not match with any other hybrid women of alien beast genes, apart from her, a purebred. He would continue to wait for her. Daywire removed his gloves and tenderly cradled the delicate Lu Ruan into the medical chamber, gently closing the lid. After casting one last deep glance at her, he finally averted his gaze and approached the operating table to examine the DNA analysis results of the embryo. The analysis would reveal its biological father and whether there were any genetic defects. However, the moment Daywire's eyes fell upon the screen, they widened in shock, utterly dumbfounded, as he fixated on the glaring red words indicating abnormal chromosome numbers.
Cough.
A 10-fold genome? Aside from her own set of chromosomes, the embryo simultaneously contained 9 additional sets. Daywire's mind began to spiral, rendering him incapable of coherent thought. After a prolonged silence, he approached the incubator where the embryo was briefly stored. Murmuring in disbelief, this female fetus has 9 biological fathers? The probability of healthy survival is exceedingly low. Star people are mutants, and among the mutants, those with polyploidy typically suffer from severe genetic disorders. His uncle, a luminary in the field of genetics, might be the only one capable of liberating his daughter from the shackles of genetic afflictions.
Ding.
Just as Daywire pondered this, the holographic computer suddenly emitted a blue light. In the operating room, Davidson and the others had waited for an hour, far exceeding the normal 30 minutes for surgery. Growing anxious, they were on the verge of forcibly entering the room. At last, Davidson could no longer restrain himself and messaged his nephew, Xiao Heir, how is the situation?
Daywire.
After deliberation, replied, the embryo has been safely transferred. She needs to rest for another half an hour before waking up. I'm currently conducting a genetic analysis. Upon receiving this response, Davidson sighed with relief. Daywire turned off the instruments at the operating table, checked the incubator for any abnormalities in the embryo, and after finding none, sat beside Lu Ruan, accessing a specialized website to research information on polyploid humans. 2 hours passed. Lu Ruan's eyelashes fluttered, and she slowly opened her eyes. Upon awakening, she saw Daywire, immersed in the ocean of knowledge, his profile strikingly reminiscent of his uncle, causing her to momentarily believe she was gazing at Davidson.
Xiao Heir.
Daywire snapped back to reality and asked, do you feel any discomfort? The advanced medical chamber efficiently repaired bodily injuries, typically healing minor surgical wounds within an hour. She assessed her condition and replied in the negative. After you return, avoid staying up late and ensure you rest well, Daywire meticulously instructed. Suddenly, he seemed to recall something and halted abruptly, pausing for 2 seconds before adding, your uncle will discuss this with you. She gazed at Daywire with anticipation. Was the embryo transfer successful? Under her expectant gaze, Daywire struggled to articulate the truth, eventually smiling. It was successful. Once it is sent to the incubation center, barring any unforeseen circumstances, you should be able to see the child born next year. Several? Is it a daughter? One, it is a daughter. And the child's father? Before entering, the genetic information of the 8 individuals outside had already been retrieved from the gene bank. All that remained was to analyze the embryo's genetic data to determine the biological father. Daywire hesitated momentarily before revealing, it's your uncle's. Upon receiving the result, Lu Ruan expressed her gratitude with delight and rose to head outside. Just as she opened the door, Daywire's voice called from behind. Wait. Lu Ruan turned to face the elegantly attired man in white. Is there anything else I need to be aware of? Will you be reapplying next year? Daywire looked into her eyes, and after grappling with his thoughts, he finally voiced a question that had lingered in his heart for a long time. She was taken aback for a second before responding slowly, I will not be reapplying. Daywire stood in the operating room, nodding thoughtfully, yet a certain obsession in his heart remained unshakable. She opened the door to greet the 8 enchanting husbands who had been waiting eagerly.
Ofen, Oyo, Odom.
Yen Yuanya, Chinchern, a senator, the baby has been safely transferred, and it's a girl. She joyfully announced her good news. The 8 charming men could no longer contain their excitement. Am I not the biological father of the child? Davidson and the others inquired in unison. Chapter 182. She is different from other children. Meeting their eager gazes, she gently uttered 3 words. It's Asinus. Davidson was momentarily stunned, hastily adjusting his glasses, followed by an overwhelming surge of excitement. After checking on Lu Ruan, he rushed into the operating room to examine the embryo's condition. A fleeting shadow of regret crossed Kodong's inky eyes, but it quickly returned to normal. Wife, your child is my child, regardless of the biological father. I will be the father of this daughter, he declared, having come to terms with the situation. Father-daughter relationships need not be established solely through blood ties. He would cherish this daughter as if she were his own. Hey, Genia chimed in, I am also the father of this daughter. The others, though slightly regretful, solemnly affirmed. Me too. All right. You are all the fathers of this daughter. Lu Ruan chuckled lightly. She had feared that her non-biological husbands would feel a tinge of disappointment, but to her surprise, they were broad-minded and accepting, far beyond her expectations. Di Chenji pulled the now-recovered Lu Ruan to sit down, his voice cool and magnetic. Darling, once Davidson secures the embryo, we will return to the villa to study. Okay. Do you remember what we discussed yesterday? Yes, during the early days of the star system. The male-to-female ratio was 3-1, and there was no empress at that time. As she reminisced about the history of the star system 3,000 years later in front of Di Chenji, he occasionally chimed in with supplemental information. The two of them cozied up in the hospital corridor, one teaching while the other learned. Meanwhile, Kodong and the others, upon learning it was a female fetus, eagerly flooded the star network, fervently purchasing baby girl supplies. After Lu Ruan reviewed the material she had studied over the past month, she noticed that Davidson had yet to emerge from the operating room. Rising, she pushed open the door to enter. Chunchin, I'm going in to see why his son has taken so long. Okay. The other men remained as steadfast as rocks, knowing that wherever Lu Ruan went, they would follow. Upon entering, she closed the door and immediately noticed the uncle and nephew engaged in an intense discussion. Oblivious to her presence, Davidson furrowed his brow, as if facing the greatest challenge of his career, while Daywire wore a bemused expression, caught between doubt and confusion. After standing there for 10 seconds and listening intently, she suddenly overheard a statement that caught her off guard. Uncle, are you suggesting that?
Yes.
If that's the case, there's a 90 chance this fetus will survive. However, Chinji's genes, along with yours and the other 7, are incompatible. She will need to take medication for life to avoid any ailments. This revelation was monumental. Lu Ruan's mind raced as she processed the implications. What does it mean that her daughter requires lifelong medication? She approached the two engrossed in discussion. Arson, what ailment afflicts our daughter? Why must she be on medication for life? Upon hearing her voice, Davidson turned to see Lu Ruan's expression of concern. He offered a serene smile, akin to a clear sky after rain, and reassured her, "Soft, you need not worry about our daughter. I will handle everything. But please, tell me what is truly happening." Lu Ruan insisted, seeking clarity. Sighing softly, Davidson began to elucidate. "Our daughter has an abnormality in her chromosomal count. In a sense, I, along with those outside, and Samuel, who has returned to Kappa Star, are all her biological fathers. Thus, she is unlike other children. However, there is no need for excessive concern. As long as she adheres to her medication, she can grow up like any other child, possibly even becoming an extraordinary being." Davidson, standing at 190 centimeters tall and 55 years of age, is one of the illustrious deans. Chapter 183, Secrets. Lu Ruan sat in silence for a while, absorbing this revelation. "Soft, please take a seat. I will speak with Xiao Er for a few more minutes, and once we have sent the baby to the incubation center, we shall return to the villa." Davidson gestured for a chair. She settled beside him as the uncle and nephew continued their discussion, filled with terms she could not comprehend. And she refrained from interjecting, since the little bundle could grant her 500 years of life, once she ascended to the throne and fulfilled her first wish. Standing at the pinnacle of power with abundant resources at her disposal, she could then pursue her second desire, her daughter's health and well-being. With the system in place, anything was possible. She relaxed, redirecting her thoughts to the two men beside her. The dean sat close, while his nephew, Weir, faced her from a distance of about 1 meter. Unbeknownst to her, the dean had imparted something to him. Weir promised, "Uncle, rest assured. I will monitor my sister's condition at the hospital in real time, and should anything unusual arise, I will inform you immediately." His complexion was fair, features sharp yet humble. A stark contrast to the deceitful persona he had just exhibited. Why had he chosen to deceive her? Perhaps her gaze was too intense. Weir's eyes shifted from his uncle to her. "Are you blaming me?" he inquired, his expression a blend of amusement and seriousness, leaving her momentarily speechless. She found it difficult to voice her thoughts about Weir, knowing her daughter would need his care in the future. Noticing her silence, Weir diverted his gaze, opting not to elaborate further. "Soft, Xiao Er was concerned that you were anxious to share the good news with Haijinai and the others, fearing they would probe further and ultimately discover your true heritage as a pure blood." At this, Davidson turned to her, clarifying his nephew's intention.
"Ah?"
she responded, momentarily perplexed. Before comprehending the situation, from Weir's perspective, he feared that her eagerness to disclose the news would lead to questions, and her instinctive reply that the baby was theirs collectively would be met with disbelief, prompting deeper investigation. Weir's deception was a means of shielding her from further scrutiny, ensuring that the men would not connect her short lifespan to potential health issues. She expressed her gratitude to Weir. "Thank you, Xiao Er, I hold no resentment against you." He merely shook his head gently, choosing not to respond. Knowing the truth was one matter, being kept in the dark was another. "Arson, if I hadn't entered, would you both have continued to conceal matters regarding our daughter?" she questioned, her gaze piercing. "No, the truth about our daughter cannot be hidden. I merely wished to wait until your election concluded before discussing this matter, not wanting to disrupt your focus on the preparations," Davidson mused, his voice tender. "Now that you are aware, whether to inform them is entirely your decision." His nephew was oblivious to the ulterior motives of the men outside, thus resorting to deception to protect her from a deeper secret. He understood that the men outside would not exploit her, even if they discovered her pure blood status. There was no cause for concern. Furthermore, with him by her side, he would safeguard her throughout her life. With a radiant smile, she replied, "Very well, Soft. Let us escort the baby to the incubation center. After advising De Weir once more, Davidson stood, guiding her to follow. She accompanied him as he retrieved the container holding the embryo from the incubator, placing it into a briefcase. He carried the case and opened the door, leading her downstairs to a nearby incubation facility. The other 7 men trailed quietly behind them. Upon entering the center, a wave of disinfectant air greeted them, and she looked around to see thousands of transparent glass-encased biological incubators, resembling artificial wombs. Inside these incubators, some fetal sacs were the size of fists, while others were merely grape-sized. She instinctively held her breath. Once the embryo was placed inside, a baby could be produced within a year, a remarkable achievement of the interstellar world. Xiao Air, how many advanced incubators remain?
2.
Take me to the one that is seldom disturbed. De Weir led the way, and she followed the group of men through rows of biological incubators until they arrived at an empty incubator in the far corner. She watched as Davidson settled in front of the equipment, extracting the container from the briefcase and transferring the embryo into the biological sac. He activated the device, labeled it, and recorded it in the incubation center system, all in one fluid motion.
Done.
Our daughter is now inside, gradually developing from a tiny embryo into a baby. Davidson removed his gloves, his gaze tender as he looked through the glass door at the biological sac. She mirrored his gaze, though the sac was opaque. Concealing the embryo within, what she had glimpsed earlier were only the larger fetuses, visible through the shadows. The incubation area requires tranquility. Let us step outside. At his words, she instinctively stepped back, her back colliding with Di Chin's waist. Turning to face him, she caught a fleeting glimpse of anticipation on his handsome face.
Di Chen.
Unaware of the truth, believed the daughter belonged solely to Davidson and appeared genuinely eager for her birth. Observing the other men, she noted similar expressions of expectation. She hesitated, contemplating whether to reveal the truth about their daughter now.
Chen, she called softly.
Darling, let's step outside first. Di Chen bent down to scoop her up, carefully avoiding the biological incubators as he made his way out. She rested her hand on his shoulder, suppressing the urge to speak, deciding it best to inform them after their daughter's arrival. Upon returning to the villa, they indulged in some desserts, and fatigue began to set in. She ventured to the master bedroom, which she hadn't slept in for ages, intending to lie down for half an hour before studying with Di Chen in the study. The curtains were drawn, letting in a strong light. As she approached the window to close the curtains, she suddenly caught sight of Sanchi lounging on the sofa in the living room of the adjacent villa, a paper notebook in hand. Sanchi's husband knelt before her, massaging her legs, while another, unfamiliar man sat beside her, explaining the contents of the notebook. She could not hear what was being said from across the way. Sangshi was visibly elated, seizing the man beside her and planting a fervent kiss on his lips before joyfully resuming her notes. She cast a glance at the man next to her, a sense of familiarity washing over her. The Supreme Executive of the Federation? In a flurry, she dove into the StarNet search, and upon viewing the resulting profile photo, her breath hitched. Could it be that Sangshi was also participating in the election? Moreover, she had enticed a prominent figure to teach her. How remarkable. Lu Ruan hastily logged into the election system to scrutinize the top 100 candidates, searching for Sangshi's name. Chapter 184. Days of Diligence. The page transitioned, revealing no changes in the top 10. Number 1. Tailengsi, contribution value 300,000.
Número 2. Lu Ruan.
Contribution value 260,000. Number 3. Xiaoxi, contribution value 210,000. Number 4. Anya, contribution value 210,000.
Número 5. Sang Yao.
Contribution value 200,000. As she scrolled through the dizzying array of names, she spotted Sangshi's name at number 92, contribution value 80,000.
So,
her sister across the villa was also in the running. She closed her light brain and peered out the window towards the opposite side, suddenly comprehending the man's lip movements next to Sangshi. Wife, do not concern yourself with the ranking. As long as you place in the top 10 in the election, you will be a candidate for the queen. She drew the curtains, choosing to disregard the scene outside. Lying on the round bed, an inexplicable pressure began to rise within her. Recently, she had been ensconced in the study with Di Chen, neglecting the fact that her competitors were also diligently striving. This was a war without gunpowder. Her adversaries were more familiar with the interstellar world, better grounded than she was, positioned at the front of the starting line. Although she was not a dullard, she was certainly not a prodigy either. This realization left her restless, banishing any desire to remain nestled in the comfort of the soft round bed. With a sudden surge of determination, she rose, splashed cold water on her face, traversed the corridor on the second floor, and entered the study. Di-chun was absent from the room. She moved through the inner door connecting the two rooms, stepping into Di-chun's bedroom. He lay sprawled on the specially designed large bed, the curtains drawn wide, revealing his exquisite sleeping visage, a pair of black trousers, a half-open shirt collar, and a tantalizing glimpse of his muscular chest, all complemented by a countenance that exuded a cold elegance. Chun-chun, rise and teach me something new. She perched on the edge of the bed, gently prodding his cheek with her finger. Di-chun's eyes fluttered open, and with a swift motion, he pulled her down beside him. Thus, she found herself lying at his side, the intoxicating scent of his dragon's saliva enveloping her, rich and inviting, igniting her senses. "What are you doing?" she chided, casting a playful glare at Di-chun. "Didn't we agree to rest for a while before studying? You seem more eager than I. Your tutor." Di-chun chuckled, drawing her closer with a sweeping motion of his hand. Their faces were mere inches apart, breaths mingling, with time slipping away. "I cannot find rest." She pressed her lips firmly against his cheek, reluctantly releasing him as she responded with a hint of exasperation. The thought of 99 competitors surreptitiously studying in various locales weighed heavily upon her, propelling her forward with an undercurrent of pressure. Maintain a calm demeanor and refrain from imposing undue stress upon yourself. Otherwise, it may yield counterproductive results. Di-chun seemed to peer into the depths of her anxious heart, his fingers gently kneading her scalp. This rascal had unexpectedly learned massage techniques from Davidson. It was quite a surprise, yet undeniably soothing. She closed her eyes slightly, savoring the perfectly measured pressure, her body gradually unwinding, just as she prepared to relish this moment of tranquility. Intending to steal a brief 2-minute respite before diving back into her tasks, a shadow suddenly loomed over her. She opened her eyes, barely able to react before Di-chun's lips descended upon hers like a flash of lightning. This kiss was tender yet lingering, possessing a magical quality that gradually dispelled her inner turmoil and unease. She felt the urge to resist, yet found herself unwilling to part from him. Ultimately, she surrendered, closing her eyes and immersing herself in the warmth of this fleeting tenderness. The man, perhaps seeking to alleviate her internal strain or to release his own pent-up tension, grew bolder in his actions, his hands wandering over her form. She gently removed his hands. "Darling, occasional exercise can effectively relieve psychological pressure." Di-chun gazed at her, his eyes deep and fervent, her finger pressed against his lips. "I am already relaxed." Di-chun's voice was restrained yet husky, teasing without responsibility. "You were the one who initiated it," she corrected him. Di-chun's gaze flickered to her abdomen. "Let me hold you, just for a moment." His arms enveloped her, and he closed his eyes, ceasing all movement. She nodded gently, leaning into his embrace, feeling the rhythm of his powerful heartbeat. Her hand, resting upon his chiseled abs, remained still. After 5 minutes, Di-chun released her. "Darling, do not burden yourself with excessive pressure. We shall proceed step by step." Di-chun exuded an air of strategical prowess, smiling lightly, moreover. "You have me." "Yes, I trust you." They rose from the bed and proceeded to the study. Di-chun began to patiently elucidate new concepts for her, and she listened intently, the previous pressure seemingly evaporating, leaving behind an abundance of motivation and confidence, ready to face the challenges that awaited in 9 months. The days of diligence passed fulfillingly. She found herself unconsciously monitoring the activities of the villa across the way, noting the hours Songshi devoted to studying. If her rival studied late into the night, she too would persist until the same hour. The men in her household could not dissuade her, resorting instead to urging Davidson to concoct nutritional supplements for her. Day after day, this accumulation bore fruit. A small handful of her hair had fallen out, yet the gains were substantial. It could be said that the knowledge nestled in her mind comprised 2/3 of Di-chun's own. On the eve of the examination in the study, Lu Ruan was still engrossed in her practice questions. "Once you complete this ultimate set of 10,000 questions, forecast your situation. If you answer them all correctly, tomorrow's exam should pose no significant challenges." Di-chun softly approached her, taking a seat beside her. He wielded a remote pen, activating the question interface. With each click of the remote, the walls of the study were instantly adorned with a dense array of questions, overwhelming to the eye. Following this, he placed a helmet upon her head. Her consciousness was instantly transported into a holographic realm where a multitude of multiple-choice questions floated before her, devoid of numbering. Completing the myriad questions from all directions would allow her to assess her readiness. Pray tell, why does the state impose a single tax on its citizens? Her finger tapped the air, magnifying the first question, beneath which lay 3 options. This question was relatively fundamental. She swiftly selected the correct answer, for infrastructure development. From dawn until dusk, she toiled through the questions, and at last, her simulated test results emerged. Of the 10,000 questions, she had answered 950 correctly, falling short by 50. Di Chen appeared contemplative, ultimately breaking down the remaining 50 questions for Lu Ruan. After she absorbed his explanations, her head felt swollen from the effort. Even her formidable mental fortitude could not withstand such strain. Just as she was about to rub her temples, Davidson approached the study gracefully, a specially formulated concoction in hand, and took a seat before her.
Softly, here.
"Did you add sugar today?" she inquired, gulping down the potion, the lingering sweetness dancing upon her palate. In truth, since September, she had consumed such potions daily, though they had previously been devoid of flavor.
Davidson smiled mysteriously. No.
After she had calmed her nerves, her gaze turned to Di Chenji. "Chun Chen, given my current state, will I be able to take the exam at Dixing tomorrow?" Di Chenji pondered for a few seconds, and as her heart raced, he gently patted her on the head. "Just relax and take the exam. You'll be fine." Chapter 185, A Gathering of Heroes. Dixing State Government Building. In the Technology Hall, 100 women gazed at a dark golden door, whispering amongst themselves, surrounded by a throng of handsome men. Some women had as many as 50 admirers, while others had only 5 or 6. Despite the sign on the door urging silence, the murmurs of the over 1,000 attendees created a cacophony. She had only brought Di Chenji and Davidson with her, 1 aide and 1 doctor. The other husbands waited in Di Chenji's castle for her to finish the exam. With half an hour remaining until the exam commenced, perhaps due to the anxiety of the 99 competitors, the whispers grew louder and transformed into normal conversation. Yalan had completed 1,000 intricate questions before the exam, achieving a remarkable accuracy rate of 99. She was certain to place in the top 10 of the Empress selection exam. Darling Miss Anya, who ranks 4th, has only done 1,000 ultimate difficult questions. You reviewed 2,000 yesterday, also with a 99 accuracy rate. You should fare just as well. Following the sound, she glanced at the woman nearby, only to see the central figure of the group, looking haggard and as thin as a reed. As she surveyed the crowd, she noted that some candidates appeared pale and emaciated, likely the result of overexertion in the past year. Conversely, others had the opposite issue. Perhaps they had indulged too lavishly during their preparations, with their figures having transformed from slender to plump. She lowered her gaze and examined herself. Her weight remained unchanged, though she had lost a bit of hair. Fortunately, Davidson's hair growth serum was quite effective, and in a month or 2, her hair would likely regain its fullness. As time passed slowly, with only 5 minutes until the exam began, tension filled the opulent hall. Cece had nearly been elected in the previous election, poised to pass through the second round this time, without a doubt. The first hurdle was the social contribution rankings, and the second was to place in the top 10 during the exam. Lu Ruan glanced towards the top-ranked Tyranshi nearby. This woman, aged a century, exuded calm and composure, having been a candidate in the last election. She was accompanied by 50 matchmakers, all elites from various interstellar industries. 20 years ago, during her campaign, she lost to Di Chenji's mother by a mere 100 votes. If Lu Ruan placed in the top 10, Tyranshi would be a formidable opponent. "Do not let others distract you. Focus on your exam," Di Chenji advised her, his voice gentle yet imbued with a certain strength, bolstering her confidence. She nodded, her resolve growing firmer. Davidson handed her a vial of opened potion, bringing it to her lips. Ruan, this will keep you alert." After drinking the potion, she felt invigorated and focused. With only 2 minutes remaining, the surrounding women also consumed nutritional liquids or stimulants to maintain their optimal physical condition. At that moment, the dark golden door slowly swung open. 10 political figures emerged, escorting the Empress, clad in her royal robe and seated in a wheelchair. One of them cleared his throat and announced, "The examination is about to begin. Ladies, please enter in an orderly fashion according to the ranking list." The hall fell silent for a moment before the first-ranked Tyran. She stepped inside. She rose to follow, and the others entered in succession. As she crossed the threshold, her entire being was scanned. Continuing forward, she beheld rows of intelligent desks and chairs, each equipped with a VR headset. She took her seat beside Tyran Shi, donned the headset, and entered the holographic environment, awaiting the exam's commencement. However, a gaze from beside her made it difficult to ignore even with the headset on. "Miss Lu." Tyran Shi suddenly called out to her. Is there something you need, Miss Tyran?" She replied blandly, not removing her headset. "I didn't see you during the last election. You must not have turned 30 yet?" Tyran Shi, still without her headset, scrutinized Lu Ruan, who seemed like a dark horse, suddenly surging to second place, closely tailing her. With a matchmaker who was none other than the interstellar second prince, an impressive contender indeed. Lu Ruan was perhaps one of the strongest competitors in this round. "I'm here," Lu Ruan responded nonchalantly. She had only just turned 30 days ago. "The 105th Empress selection exam officially begins. Please answer the questions within the allotted time. When time is up, the system will close, and the exam will end." Tyran Shi wished to learn more about Lu Ruan, but as a crisp notification echoed in the room, she was compelled to don her headset. Lu Ruan disregarded the murmurs of the women around her, immersing herself in her own world. Before her floated a series of questions, each bearing a number. There were a total of 3,000 multiple-choice questions, both single and multiple selections, with a 5-hour answering time. As the numbers increased, so did the difficulty of the questions. The questions numbered beyond 2,000 posed challenges that could stump countless women. She swiftly scanned the questions hovering in the air, and though the difficulty exceeded her expectations, she remained unperturbed. Drawing upon her diligent studies with Di Qinji and her solid knowledge base, she commenced answering. The examination hall was enveloped in silence, while outside, a lively commotion akin to a bustling marketplace ensued. The matchmakers of the women who made it into the top 100 were, for the most part, prominent figures in the interstellar realm. A veritable gathering of heroes, they stood in the hall, engaging in animated discussions. Particularly, Tyran Shi's 50 matchmakers spoke with exuberance, their confidence palpable, their arrogance barely concealed. They had prepared meticulously for this moment. Cici had nearly secured her position in the previous election, only to be thwarted by an unexpected surge of votes for the current empress, which led to her defeat. The incumbent empress had served for a century, and now, due to her advanced age, she could not compete. This time, Cici was certain to ascend to the empress's throne. Di Chunji cast a detached glance towards the crowd surrounding the 50 men. Davidson listened to the confident chatter around him, uncertain of Lu Ruan's capabilities. After all, the other 99 candidates were the heads of prominent families who had studied far longer than she had. "The second prince and my wife." Di Qinji offered Davidson a reassuring look, though he hesitated slightly, pondering the 50 questions Lu Ruan had answered incorrectly. Perhaps she could still place in the top 10. He had witnessed her efforts since September. While she might have some shortcomings in memory, her understanding was remarkably profound. While others had prepared for 10 or 20 years, she had managed to grasp the intricacies of interstellar policies in just 10 months. Such talent was unparalleled among interstellar women. "You stay here. I will go upstairs to check on the Empress." Upstairs, the highest-ranking officials of the Federation, the Interstellar Empress, and 8 other significant political figures were monitoring every move in the examination hall. The Empress's gaze lingered on the second position in the first row, where Lu Ruan sat. Chapter 186. Has she fallen asleep in the examination hall? Inside the examination hall, Lu Ruan ignored the discomfort of being scrutinized from the shadows, feeling an indescribable sensation welling up within her. At the tender age of 9, she had abandoned her studies to pursue a career in acting, and now she faced her first significant examination in life. Despite her unwavering determination to succeed, an undercurrent of uncertainty lingered in her heart. Before entering, Di Chun had advised her that the examination would last for 5 hours, requiring her to read and answer questions with her consciousness. Each question should ideally be addressed in no more than 5 seconds. Otherwise, the system would shut down, rendering her unable to respond. The brisk pace allowed for brief intermissions, which were essential given the potential for mental fatigue over such an extended period. Taking a deep breath, she immersed herself in the task at hand, allowing time to accelerate. 3 hours later, the disparity among the 100 distinguished women became increasingly evident. Their external performances revealed their states of mind. Apart from Lu Ruan, Tai Lanxi, and Zhang Shi, along with 10 women whose mental prowess had reached the esteemed S grade, the others had succumbed to exhaustion, removing their glasses and massaging their aching temples. Lu Ruan sensed numerous gazes upon her and felt a momentary pause, her consciousness shifting to the clock icon at the edge of the virtual interface. Had 3 hours truly passed? A pang of anxiety gripped her. To maintain accuracy, she had consistently kept her answering time to 5 seconds, with some questions extending to 6. With a third of the questions still unanswered, the situation was far from dire, but certainly not relaxed. Surprisingly, she felt no fatigue whatsoever. Perhaps Davidson had provided her with something extraordinary. She cleared her mind for 10 seconds and pressed on. The questions increased in difficulty, with higher numbers. And she became even more engrossed. Her consciousness was entirely immersed in the holographic world, her physical form motionless, creating an illusion that she had succumbed to slumber. With half an hour remaining, Tai Lanchi ceased answering questions, removed her glasses, and reclined leisurely, awaiting the end notification, accompanied by a dozen others. Only Lu Ruan and a few women who had taken longer breaks remained engaged. Above, Di-Chin observed Lu Ruan's state through the monitors, his apprehension mounting as he could not discern whether she was answering questions or asleep. He noted the other women. Those still engaged in the examination exhibited involuntary twitches in their fingers or toes every couple of minutes. Yet his wife remained utterly still. Could it be that she had not taken a break and, succumbing to mental exhaustion, had drifted into slumber? The queen beside Di-Chin discreetly averted her gaze from Lu Ruan, silently lamenting that her daughter-in-law had disregarded Di-Chin's counsel, thus dooming her chances in this election. Chin, perhaps in 20 years, you and little Lu can try again, she suggested. Di-Chin nodded gently. As the 5-hour mark arrived, the examination concluded. A merciless mechanical voice filled the examination hall. Time's up. Ladies, please exit the examination hall in an orderly fashion. The top 10 will be announced online in 3 days. For some, this announcement was a release. For others, it extinguished their hopes. Upon hearing the signal, Lu Ruan removed her glasses and exhaled deeply. She had managed to complete all 3,000 questions in the last 10 seconds. Thank goodness. She had given it her all. Rising from her seat, she strolled out of the examination hall with ease. 2 men awaited her eagerly, one warm and gentle, the other noble and dignified. She immediately spotted them, making her way through the throngs of people with graceful strides. Chen, the results will be announced in 3 days, and the day after that is the live broadcast. Should we return home, or head to your Imperial Star Castle? She asked as she paused against a wall, gazing at Di-Chin. We shall remain at the Imperial Star, he replied coolly. Since you slept for 2 hours during the examination, this election is destined for failure. We shall only have another chance in 20 years. He thought as he led her to the castle to explore. Once the new queen assumed her reign, all royal symbols, including the palace and castle, would need to be sold to the next queen, and she would no longer have the opportunity to visit or reside there. Then I will inform Dong and the others to continue waiting at your castle, she said, activating her communicator to message others. Di-Chin, surprisingly, did not inquire about her performance in the exam, standing in stark contrast to the other men who clamored for information the moment their wives emerged. Some sighing in disappointment while others beamed with pride. Such was the demeanor of a prince, so composed. Ruan, are you tired? Though Davidson had not viewed the monitors, he understood Di-Chin's instructions not to ask about her examination, and thus he grasped the underlying meaning. Seeing Lu Ruan appear so relaxed, he felt a wave of relief. I'm not tired, she replied, but just then, a loud uproar erupted from the crowd. She is first. She is invincible. As she turned to see, Di-Chin and Davidson guided her straight outside, where they encountered Sang Shi, standing next to the federal chief executive. Miss Lu, what a coincidence. How did you fare in the exam? Sang Shi greeted with a broad smile that exuded charm. I did my best, but I have no idea how I performed, she replied with a smile. Unbeknownst to her, Di-Chin had already informed Luo Yao and others not to inquire about her exam results. The men at the Imperial Star Castle, dozens of kilometers away, immediately understood, each pondering how to comfort her should she have performed poorly. Arriving at the Imperial Star Castle, she was greeted by opulent decor. The first words from the men were unrelated to the election. Sister, there's a natural hot spring at the Imperial Star. Would you like to take a dip? Luo Yao said, pulling her onto his lap. We can go after the election, she chuckled, glancing at the fashionably dressed silver-haired man who always sought to entertain her. Soft bow. The time for our daughter's birth is approaching. Shall we return home to check? Samuel inquired, his deep eyes glimmering with anticipation. She met the gaze of the handsome man. Old saw, there's no rush. I believe I did reasonably well. Let's see if I can make it into the top 10. We can return afterward. The others were surprised to hear her say she performed well but refrained from pressing further. Over the next 3 days, she enjoyed a delightful stay at the Imperial Star Castle, indulging in gourmet meals and engaging in lively conversations with the men. Finally, the day arrived for the announcement of the top 10 candidates. They gathered around the holographic screen, filled with tension and anticipation. As the list slowly materialized, all eyes were glued to it. First place, Tai Lanxi. Second place, Zhang Shi. Third place, Jiao Shi. Fourth place,
Anya.
sixth and seventh places came and went without Lu Ruan's name appearing. The men silently averted their gazes, realizing the results aligned closely with their expectations. Continuing to scan the list after the men had looked away, she saw 8th place, Sang Yaoyao. 9th place, Ai Wei. Her heart leaped into her throat. Despite her belief that she had performed adequately, the chasm between her and those preparing to lead grand families for decades was substantial. Taking a deep breath, she finally reached the 10th place. The announcement read, Chapter 187, The Queen's Personal Bestowal. 10th place, Lu Ruan. The tension in her throat eased, replaced by a fierce determination that flickered in her eyes. Since she had made it onto the candidate list, she had to fight for that position. Glancing up, she found her husband still pondering how to console her. Chen, a Feng, a Dong, I have good news. I made it into the top 10, she exclaimed, a smile breaking across her face as she presented her communicator to the men. The name Lu Ruan shone brightly in 10th place. Di Chen was momentarily stunned by this unexpected joy, his icy demeanor dissipating. The other men were equally astonished, unable to believe their own eyes. With a resounding slap, He Jinya struck Luo Yao, who let out a hiss of surprise and shot a furious glare at He Jinya, questioning her sanity. It was no mere dream. Wan had indeed secured a place among the top 10, a veritable miracle. He Jinya observed her with a cheerful smile, disregarding Luo Yao completely. She cleared her throat, admonishing, Jinya, how could you strike a Yao? Be mindful and apologize to him. Stop causing a ruckus. He Jinya glanced at Luo Yao and lazily offered an apology. Apologies. Luo Yao, my hand slipped. Luo Yao scoffed, uncertain if he accepted He Jinya's apology, and congratulated her instead. Sister, congratulations on becoming a candidate for Empress. She smiled faintly, raising a glass of juice from the table and downing it in one gulp. Di Chenji, standing beside her, seemed to have recalled something, pulling her tightly into his embrace and praising, Darling, you are truly remarkable. A flicker of pride sparkled in his eyes. Di Chenji continued. It turns out my wife appeared to be asleep during the exam, but she was merely in a state of deep concentration. Cheers erupted within the D-Star Castle. Women from the top 10 across various star systems celebrated in their villas. Some rejoiced while others were disheartened. The 90 candidates who had failed to secure a spot among the Empress candidates were on the verge of tears, particularly the one ranked 11th. Her match partner desperately sought ways to console her. The list of the top 10 Empress candidates was publicly available online at the F-1008 Star military base. Yi stumbled upon the candidate list, his hand trembling as he spotted the name Lu Ruan in the 10th position. She had been missing for nearly a year, preparing for the competition. According to past customs, the day following the release of the candidate list was reserved for a live broadcast by the candidates, culminating in a public vote to select the next Empress. His expression hardened as he delved deeper into this year's election details. After 10 minutes of investigation, he finally grasped the reforms in the election process. Empress candidates would conduct masked live streams, and citizens would vote anonymously. Candidates were prohibited from soliciting votes. The mainframe would assess any potential vote solicitation based on the candidates' online activities over the past year. Should anyone violate the rules, their solicited votes would be rendered void. Those who committed egregious offenses, such as acquiring 10 million votes through solicitation, would be outright expelled from the candidate pool. Upon comprehending the rules, a glint of determination flashed in his stark black and white eyes. Her visage was indelibly etched in his heart. Even if she masked her face and altered her voice, he could instinctively recognize her. She aspired to occupy that position, and he would ultimately lend her a hand. Within the D-Star Castle, the family, after the excitement subsided, regained their composure. Wan finally received a candidate notification message. Congratulations, Miss Ruan, on becoming one of the candidates for Empress. Please report to the D-Star Provincial Government Building tomorrow morning for a live broadcast beginning at 9 o'clock. For details, please click on the link. She clicked on the link, reading through the live stream guidelines and regulations, feeling a sense of assurance. My darling, I can only assist you this far. The next phase relies solely on your own efforts. Dichenji offered her an encouraging glance. She closed her light brain with a slight smile. I understand. Let me take you to visit the Empress Mother. As she prepared to step outside for some fresh air and contemplate the live stream content for the following day, Dichenji spoke again. She raised an eyebrow. Chinji, do you intend to? Dichenji nodded softly. She tidied her appearance and followed him from the D-Star Castle to the Empress Palace. The two buildings were merely 3 kilometers apart, and it took only a minute to arrive via a dedicated transporter. Upon reaching the palace, the Empress sat regally on her phoenix throne in the Grand Hall, flanked by the 11th Prince and several attendants. The Empress's face bore the marks of time, and according to Davidson, her life was limited to merely 3 months. Greetings, Your Majesty. She performed a respectful bow. The Empress waved her hand dismissively, her eyes seemingly piercing through to the truth, fixing her gaze on her. Little dear, no need for excessive formality. Did you and Chinji come here regarding tomorrow's live stream? Though phrased as a question, her tone was resolutely certain. Rising, she candidly acknowledged, indeed. With her intentions laid bare, denying it would have been disingenuous. The Empress dismissed the 11th Prince and instructed the attendants to bring forth 2 stools for her and Dichenji. Mother, now that Lu Ruan has made it into the top 10, I find there's little more I can teach her. Might you offer her some guidance? After settling down, Dichenji casually inquired of the Empress, speaking as a son would to his mother. Generally, princes would not dare to speak to the Empress in such a manner. However, having spent considerable time beside her, Dichenji was direct and avoided any circumlocution. The Empress's gaze returned to Lu Ruan, neither acquiescing nor rejecting the request. After a moment of silence, the Empress finally spoke. Little dear, have you contemplated why you desire this position? While she hoped this daughter-in-law would inherit her mantle and continue the royal bloodline alongside her second son, she yearned even more for the throne to be occupied by a truly capable individual. After 3,000 years of the stellar era, the Empress system had persisted through over 100 reigns. Some empresses enacted sweeping reforms upon ascension, leading to widespread suffering among the populace, while others were overly cautious, ruling for 2 decades without any advancement in interstellar society. She was uncertain of the young woman's aspirations before her. Lu Ruan pondered for a moment before responding clearly. I actually wish to abolish the single tax for scavengers across the entire star system. Upon hearing this, the Empress fell silent. She refrained from commenting on whether the young woman's ambitions were commendable or misguided. At this time, Dichenji spoke up. Mother, F-1008 star has completed its development, and military expenditures are no longer as substantial as before. Excluding the Black Underworld star, the scavengers on the other 8 stars constitute merely 5 of the total population. I believe abolishing their single tax is feasible. The Empress sighed deeply. One thread pulled can affect the whole tapestry. However, times change. Currently, this world belongs to the youth. The 5 deficit must be compensated from other sources to ensure the stability of the tax system. Dichenji nodded in agreement. The Empress regarded Lu Ruan, imparting her wisdom. Little dear, this year's live stream will be even more equitable. Given the current circumstances, there are 2 pressing issues plaguing the interstellar realm. First, no female infants have been born in the past 30 years. The second is how to reclaim the Black Underworld star and achieve unity. If you can center your speech around one of these 2 critical issues, especially the first, and propose genuinely useful solutions, the citizens will undoubtedly support you. Chapter 188. She is set to make a grand entrance. The following morning, at the D-Star Provincial Government Building in the changing room, the Empress candidates stood before a long table, cloaked in black capes that obscured their original attire, revealing only their general silhouettes. All light brains were confiscated for safekeeping. Ladies, please select your masks in order of your rankings. The table displayed 10 different beast masks for the candidates to choose from: sawtooth tiger, caterpillar, mutant rat, mutant golden eagle, black serpent, blue serpent, fire lizard, anomalous winged ancestor dragon, mutant crab, and mutant shrimp. The distinct masks were designed to create memorable impressions for the online audience. Lu Ruan, ranked 10th, stood still, observing others as they made their selections, knowing that whatever remained would be hers. Tailingxi wandered back and forth twice before opting for the sawtooth tiger mask. The second-ranked Songxi chose the blue serpent mask, while the third-ranked Xiaoxi selected the black serpent mask. The subsequent candidates began their choices from the larger mutant beasts. When it was finally her turn, Only a solitary caterpillar mask remained. Without a hint of disdain, she picked up the caterpillar mask and donned it, gazing into the mirror. The two antennae of the caterpillar perked up adorably atop her head, exuding an innocence devoid of intimidation. Perhaps due to its overt cuteness, none of the other women chose this option. Once dressed, they proceeded to the designated room as instructed. In the spacious chamber, 10 small soundproof broadcasting rooms awaited them. Once seated, they found themselves unable to communicate offline, relegated to observing one another through their respective live streams. According to their rankings, she occupied the last position. Ladies, please prepare yourselves. The live broadcast will commence shortly. Prior to their arrival, each participant had meticulously reviewed the rules. All 10 candidates would share the same live streaming space, presenting their segments to the audience, who could only identify them by their masks. Voting would also occur based on the masks. The entire event was slated to last approximately 2 hours, with each candidate allotted 10 minutes for their speeches, selected at random. After an hour and 40 minutes, all candidates had delivered their speeches, which would be recorded and displayed in their individual live streams for the citizens to remember their respective viewpoints. Following this, the remaining 20 minutes would be dedicated to audience interaction, allowing them to pose questions and receive answers from the candidates. Upon the conclusion of this interaction, citizens would cast their votes anonymously across the network, with each person permitted a single vote. The candidate with the highest votes would ascend to the position of the next empress. During the broadcast, there was no need to fixate on the camera, as one would on Earth. They simply needed to sit upright, with the camera automatically capturing their gestures and other expressive movements during their speeches. Just 2 minutes after she took her seat, an alert sounded. The live broadcast had begun. The attention of the citizens turned towards the streaming room. We now invite the candidate wearing the fire lizard mask to take the stage. The first speaker, a woman adorned with a fire lizard mask, gestured emphatically as her passionate voice resonated throughout the vast broadcast space populated by 9 billion viewers. Good morning, interstellar netizens. At this rare and opportune moment, I am delighted to discuss the malignant existence of Dark Abyss Star. Coughing, Lu Ruan found herself momentarily choked. What did she mean by a malignant existence? Striving to maintain her composure, she continued to listen. The citizens of Dark Abyss Star were notorious for their heinous deeds. They were born to wickedness. Presently, that planet was under dictatorial autonomy, posing a significant threat to the 8 major stars. On this special day, the citizens paused their affairs to watch the broadcast, their attention entirely captivated by the woman in the fire lizard mask. Thus, I advocate for the concentration of all military forces to annihilate every inhabitant of Dark Abyss Star, thereby achieving true peace. With her statement concluded, a wave of fervor surged across the network. Decades prior, the miscreants of Dark Abyss Star had wreaked havoc on the other major stars, their crimes innumerable, and the citizens harbored a profound hatred for those actions. This candidate's call to attack Dark Abyss Star and eradicate its evil was met with a surge of patriotic zeal. In a remote town on Gamma Star, 2 17-year-old boys rose from their seats. Vote for her, for the lady in the fire lizard mask. However, the voting portal had not yet opened. All candidates had to conclude their speeches and interactions first. No need to look further. I will support her. In the streaming room, the first speech concluded. Next, we invite the candidate in the sawtooth tiger mask to speak. She had yet to be called, and so she continued to wait. The citizens outside were unaware of who was beneath each mask, but the candidates were well informed. The second speaker, donning the sawtooth tiger mask, was Tyran Shi. She had prepared thoroughly and was the most promising candidate among them. Good morning, netizens. Since the implementation of the Empress system, the 9 major stars have enjoyed 2 millennia of peace. If we recklessly attack Dark Abyss Star, we will undoubtedly jeopardize this hard-won tranquility. Tyran Shi's eloquent discourse successfully shifted public sentiment. The streaming room had now muted audience commentary, and the citizens engaged in hushed discussions, deeming it more prudent to manage Dark Abyss Star than to annihilate its populace. Far away on Dark Abyss Star, its citizens remained oblivious to how the inhabitants of the other 8 stars perceived them. Decades earlier, within their own domain, villains, driven by poverty and laziness, had perpetrated atrocities against scavengers, leaving death and devastation in their wake. Their economy lagged behind the other stars, and life was chaotic and uncertain. Later, a leader emerged, transforming their way of life. They had once been villains and scavengers, but now they had evolved into law-abiding and industrious citizens. Next, we invite the candidate in the crab mask to speak. Following closely was the candidate in the blue eel mask. The uninformed citizens had grown weary of the political discourse. She was uncertain whether her luck was favorable or not, having been chosen randomly time and again without being called. As the second-to-last candidate approached the microphone, it seemed she would be the grand finale. The previous speakers had both addressed Dark Abyss Star, while the remaining candidates, aware of the two proposed solutions, worried that further discussion would render them insignificant. They quickly adjusted their strategies to tackle less daunting issues under the current predicament. To her surprise, the two difficult issues mentioned by the Empress had only seen the first one addressed, while the second remained shrouded in silence. Good morning, esteemed viewers across the network.
Today,
I wish to discuss the issue of female birth rates. Just as she assumed she would be the first to broach the topic of female infants, her sister in the villa across the way, sang she interjected. The seemingly calm streaming room erupted into a frenzy. The citizens, fatigued by the monotonous discussions, suddenly found renewed energy. In recent years, the Empress had implemented a series of policies to encourage interstellar families to give birth to daughters. Yet the results had been disappointingly minimal. Having studied interstellar history and geography for many years, I have discovered a potential solution to improve the female birth rate. Chapter 189. She was far ahead. This solution is, sang she, wearing the blue eel mask, intentionally elongated her final syllable, tantalizing the citizens before pausing for 3 seconds to heighten their anticipation, then revealed her proposition: migration, relocating to a different planet. The environments of the 8 major stars were ill-suited for the growth of female beings. Among the thousands of subordinate stars, there must be one conducive to female existence. I propose that exploration teams and military forces collaborate to assess the gender ratios across the subordinate stars. By migrating to stars with a higher ratio of females, we may increase the birth rate of daughters. Upon concluding her statement, the citizens fell into contemplation. For 30 years, no female infants had been born. The issue of female birth rates was paramount to the survival of the entire interstellar community. If the trend continued, 3 centuries later, all women across the cosmos would perish, leading to the extinction of human civilization in 600 years. The military personnel wore grim expressions, having just expended significant resources to develop planet F-1008, only to potentially abandon it the following year. The explorers of the Exploration Association shook their heads. Over the years, they had traversed the subordinate stars, observing that male animals vastly outnumbered females and rarely encountering any females at all. If planets with balanced gender ratios existed, they would need to explore uncharted territories. Most citizens remained unaware of the conditions on the subordinate stars, but after careful consideration, they felt inclined to cast their votes for the candidate in the blue eel mask, believing that the situation with Dark Abyss Star could be deferred, while the urgency of improving female birth rates could not be overlooked. Let the final candidate for the caterpillar mask take the floor. After an hour and a half, it was finally Lu Ruan's turn to speak. Apart from Yi, David, and a few others who recognized her as one of the 9 husbands, the remaining citizens had already made up their minds on whom to vote for and were now rather disinterested. A glimmer of brilliance flashed in Lu Ruan's eyes. The rules merely stated that the individual must remain anonymous and masked, without explicitly forbidding the revelation of their matcher's name. This oversight could be attributed to the scarcity of women. Once revealed, the audience could not discern her identity. In this context, she could exploit the loophole to seize everyone's attention. Clearing her throat, she began, "Greetings to all viewers across the internet. Allow me to introduce myself. I am the head of the Shadow Gathering from Black Ming Star, and I am also a mother about to give birth to a daughter for the first time in nearly 30 years. The citizens watching the live stream sprang to their feet in astonishment. The 8 major stars outside of Black Ming Star were particularly taken aback by her opening statement. The astute viewers immediately linked her title of head with that of a spouse, but what truly astonished them was her claim of impending motherhood. Could this possibly be true? The federal officials, eager to verify her statement, quickly contacted her matchers to confirm the situation. After a few minutes of verification, they confirmed that Lu Ruan had not lied. Her matchers included not only the 3 from Black Ming Star but also Qin Feng, Di Chun, Davidson, and Kudong. The daughter she spoke of was currently being nurtured in the finest hospital on Alpha Star, with her birth expected in just a few days. Lu Ruan skillfully maintained her rhythm. Having introduced herself, she paused for a moment, allowing the audience to absorb her words before continuing. If I were to take office, I would confidently assure you that Black Ming Star is not a threat to us, but rather our ally. Regarding the issue of increasing the birth rate for daughters, I do not support the approach of the previous candidate. The adventurers in the live stream should understand that the gender ratio on the 1,000 affiliated stars is quite imbalanced. Thus far, there has been no instance of a star with a significant female population. I advocate for the formation of a research team comprising elites in biology, medicine, and mechanics in the coming years to tackle the challenge of machine incubation for girls, fundamentally solving the issue of female births. Her melodious voice, complemented by expressive gestures, captivated the attention of the 900 billion viewers online. Many citizens began to reconsider their opinions. After the final candidate concluded her speech, the session transitioned into a 20-minute interactive segment, followed by the opening of the voting channel. 10 minutes later, the speech concluded, and the ban on commenting in the live stream was lifted. In an instant, a barrage of comments flooded the screen. Most citizens directed their inquiries toward the caterpillar mask candidate, while a minority of warmongers posed questions to the fire lizard and moderates directed their queries to the sawtooth tiger. Anonymous user 1 inquired of the caterpillar, "Is it true that you are about to give birth to a daughter?" "Indeed," Lu Ruan swiftly replied, having caught sight of the question. Anonymous user 2 questioned the caterpillar, "How can we be sure that your matcher from Black Ming star won't sacrifice the interests of the 8 major stars for their benefit?" "My matchers are not limited to them. I also have Marshal Qin and the second prince." Anonymous user 99 asked the fire lizard, "Have you calculated the resources and manpower required to attack Black Ming star?" "I have not. But if the combined forces of the 8-star federal army allocate 1/3 of their resources, we should be able to conquer Black Ming star within a month." The fire lizard mask candidate replied, addressing the pointed question. Anonymous user 99 queried the sawtooth tiger, "You only mentioned Black Ming star. What about the issue of female birth rates? If you were in power, how would you address this dilemma?" Anonymous user 999 questioned the caterpillar, "May I ask, could you please show us your prenatal checkup report?" Lu Ruan took a sip of water, noticing an influx of approving comments, and had no choice but to respond honestly to the viewers in the live stream. "I did not bring my light brain during the speech, so I cannot display the checkup report. How can we be sure you are telling the truth?" The inability to present the checkup report led the supporters of other candidates in the live stream to begin accusing her of deception. With only 30 seconds remaining, fearing her efforts might be in vain, she was about to explain when the officials stepped in to validate her claims. Official notice. After verification, the caterpillar candidate has not lied. Just as the official comment appeared, the interaction time concluded and the voting channel opened. The 900 billion citizens promptly cast their votes. The 10 candidates held their breath, witnessing this exhilarating moment. Lu Ruan clenched her hands tightly, praying that the citizens would believe in her and cast their votes for her. Vote count. Initial votes. Sawtooth tiger, 0 votes. Caterpillar, 0 votes. Mutant mouse, 0 votes. Mutant golden eagle, 0 votes. Black flood dragon, 0 votes. Blue flood dragon, 0 votes. Fire lizard, 0 votes. Alien winged ancestor dragon, 0 votes. Mutant crab, 0 votes. Mutant shrimp, 0 votes. As the citizens across the 8 major stars cast their votes, the numbers shifted dramatically. Lu Ruan's husbands were the first to vote for her, followed by Yi Yi, the million soldiers of Qin Feng, Davidson, and officials in the state building who knew she was not lying. The Empress also cast her vote for her. Within a few short minutes, Lu Ruan's votes soared far ahead of the other candidates, creating a significant gap. As the 5-minute voting period came to an end, the vote counts for each candidate were announced. Chapter 190. The new Empress is so young. Vote count. Final votes, from highest to lowest caterpillar. 80, 000, 000, 000 votes. Blue flood dragon, 500, 000, 000 votes. Sawtooth tiger, 100, 000, 000 votes. Fire lizard, 100, 000, 000 votes. Mutant golden eagle, 3, 000 votes. Mutant mouse, 1, 000 votes. Alien winged ancestor dragon, 900 votes. Black flood dragon, 100 votes. Mutant crab, 70 votes. Mutant shrimp, 20 votes. Congratulations to the caterpillar candidate for winning with 80 billion votes, securing her position as the next interstellar empress. A heartfelt male voice proclaimed as the once-in-20 years empress election concluded. Lu Ruan's heart raced with joy, dopamine surging through her veins. She had finally achieved her dream. She had become the new empress, a certainty now. Once in power, she would enact policies to abolish the single tax on all interstellar scavengers, fulfilling the final wish of her 3 brothers and granting them 500 years of life. Splendid. Truly splendid. At 30, she had become a powerful empress, an achievement indeed. Lu Ruan sat on her chair, her exhilaration and elation hard to contain. Caterpillar candidate, please remove your mask so our new empress can greet the citizens of the stars. The viewers in the live stream remained, eagerly awaiting a glimpse of the new empress's visage as the host spoke. She raised her hand and slowly removed the caterpillar mask. Instantly, a youthful and strikingly recognizable face appeared before the eyes of 900 billion viewers. Those who knew her were moved to tears. Qin Feng and the others felt their eyes welling up with emotion. Their wife had finally realized her aspiration, and they were filled with pride and joy. Those unfamiliar with her felt their pupils dilate, and their breath caught in their throats. The new empress is astoundingly youthful. The new empress is breathtakingly beautiful. Not only is she young and exquisite, but she is also on the verge of giving birth to the first female child in the galaxy in 30 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall keep my speech brief. Allow me to add that I will dutifully fulfill the responsibilities of an empress, dedicating myself to addressing the challenges of female births and striving for the welfare of our interstellar citizens. She offered a composed and dignified smile to the audience across the network. Men and women from all corners of the galaxy felt a swell of anticipation within their hearts. The new empress, hailing from the powerful family of Black Abyss Star, promises to secure their stability for the next 2 decades, and her commitment to resolving the issue of female births makes her a monarch worthy of support. They gazed at the chat box in the live stream, silenced by the moderators, wishing fervently that the ban would be lifted so they could cheer for her. After Lu Ruan finished speaking, a steady male voice resonated once more. We ask the newly appointed Empress Lu Ruan to conduct the handover of duties with the outgoing Empress Di Rian. In 10 days, the coronation ceremony will be held. This election has now concluded. The election live stream came to a close. Across the galaxy, 5 billion single men heard the name Lu Ruan and erupted into a cacophony of wails, only to be followed by exhilaration. The candidate known as Caterpillar turned out to be Lu Ruan's wife. So this is what Lu Ruan's wife looks like. However, her status has now changed. She is the new empress. The chasm between their identities felt insurmountable. In a distant corner of the galaxy, men of lower social standing beat their chests in frustration, while single individuals of higher status, closer to the centers of power in the Galactic Tower, found various thoughts bubbling to the surface, some appropriate, some not. Lu Ruan remained oblivious to the uproar ignited by the revelation of her name. She calmly stood, exited the room, and returned to Alpha Star with her waiting husbands to witness the arrival of their daughter. After exiting, Tai Lanxi and the other candidates lingered outside the state building for a considerable time. They reflected on the vast disparity in votes and, ultimately resigned to their fate, could only await the next election. On Alpha Star, at the incubation center near Davidson Hospital, Lu Ruan stood before the incubator, gazing through the glass door at the baby who was nearing birth. Typically, gestation lasts over 9 months, while incubation requires around 10. The little one inside the biological pouch wriggled occasionally, full of vitality, exhibiting a state comparable to that of a fetus nurtured within the womb. Ruan, your daughter is expected to arrive in 3 days. Why don't you name her? Davidson gently suggested after reviewing the readings. All right, let me think, she replied, her eyes still fixated on her daughter, eager to discern whom she resembled, though the view through the pouch was somewhat obscured. The head of the hospital had asked her to name the child, ensuring she would bear her surname, but what should her first name be? After pondering for 2 minutes, she decided, how about Lu Qingxue? Shall we name our daughter Lu Qingxue? What do you all think? She looked at the 9 men with fatherly expressions, all of whom had gathered alongside Davidson. Sister, we all support you. Qingxue sounds ethereal, one of them replied. Qingxue, Kadong repeated, savoring the name, his dark eyes brightening. Qingxue Ruan, you have a knack for naming. The trio of He Jinyi expressed their approval. Qin Feng and Samuel voiced their support as well. Then let it be Lu Qingxue. When our daughter is born and registered in the gene bank, we shall officially record that name, Davidson acquiesced, embodying the role of a gentle and devoted husband. The remaining men exchanged glances, revealing a hint of envy. Damn Davidson. Will our daughter, due to blood ties, not grow closer to him? They could only watch with jealousy as they envisioned Davidson cradling their daughter daily. Noticing the shift in the expressions of the other men, Lu Ruan astutely guessed their thoughts. She decided to share the truth about their daughter. A Feng, a Dong, Yi, Old Sa, You need not envy a senior. 8 pairs of eyes turned to her in confusion. She gestured toward the little one in the incubator, saying, Qingxua, in fact, is your collective daughter. The revelation took a moment to sink in.
What?
They were momentarily speechless. She added with a smile, what I mean is, you are all her biological fathers. Kedong's expression turned to one of shock. Luo Yao found it hard to believe, thinking Lu Ruan was jesting. He Jin's eyes glinted with contemplation. A smirk played at the corner of He Jin's mouth. Realizing that Davidson had not spoken, he understood Lu Ruan's words were true, exclaiming, Ruan, this is simply astonishing. She quickly placed a finger to her lips, shushing him. Quiet now. The incubation center requires silence. He Jin fell silent. At that moment, Qin Feng and Samuel stepped forward, re-evaluating the baby within the biological pouch, their faces lighting up with joy. This was also their daughter. I wonder who our daughter resembles? Lu Ruan murmured with anticipation, her gaze flickering towards Samuel. Chapter 191. Rotating Duties of the Bedchamber. Upon returning to the villa as dusk approached, she languidly reclined on the soft sofa. Truly delightful. After 10 years of tension, she could finally relax in this moment. Looking up, she beheld a fantastical crystal chandelier on the ceiling, refracting the hues of the sunset into a delicate display of light, subtle yet opulent. Turning her gaze outside, she admired the garden, the open-air pool, and the fountain, all verdant and lush. A gentle breeze, carrying the fragrance of flowers and the freshness of water, wafted through the window, bringing a refreshing comfort. Sister, would you like to swim? The water is still chilly in early spring. I can heat the pool for you before you dive in, Luo Yao remarked, following her gaze to the pool. Yao, I want to be swimming, she replied, retracting her gaze to look at Luo Yao, smiling softly. As the other men relaxed, they began to voice their innermost thoughts. Little Ruan, your speech this morning was truly remarkable, exuding the aura of an empress. Wherever you point, I shall lead my 100,000 soldiers, Qin Feng stated, having maintained his commanding presence even after a year of leisure. Very well, Feng. Wife, if you need anything from our Explorers Association, feel free to speak directly to me and Luo Yao. Meichem, Ruan, once you take office, you might consider lifting the restrictions on Black Abyss Star, allowing for trade between planets to resume. But you must ensure that your people behave themselves. They are quite obedient. Ruan, my brother speaks the truth. I believe all criminals from the 8 great stars could be relocated to Black Abyss Star, where they could be reformed and brainwashed after a few years of labor in prison, thus converting waste into wealth. He Jin cast a sidelong glance at her, his expression a blend of mischief and delight. She smiled silently, reflecting on the past decade. Yi remained as audacious as ever, someone not easily trifled with. My darling, the former empress has begun the process of clearing the palace. In a few days, she and the uncles will retire to a quiet place, and we will move into the palace in 10 days, allowing you to handle governmental affairs in the imperial capital.
Dickensi spoke up.
With each change of empress, new royal members would move into the palace. This was a customary tradition. His castle would not need to be sold. Many items left behind by the former empress would remain for him, so there was no need for her to purchase anything. All right, she nodded in agreement with Di Qingji. Let us celebrate tonight. In 10 days, we shall hold the coronation ceremony while we move to the palace. The villa on Alpha Star will remain our retreat for the occasional respite. The welfare villa is not for sale. One day, when I no longer serve as empress, I shall return here to enjoy my retirement. The men expressed their agreement. Soft treasure, for the past 10 months, you have been sharing the same bed with Emperor Qingji. Tonight, Samuel's deep-set eyes gaze at her with tender affection, his androgynous features flickering with anticipation. His flowing silver hair cascades gracefully, while the sheer, dark green fabric drapes delicately over his exquisite form, hinting at an ethereal beauty. Beautiful. So stunning it defies description. Apart from Emperor Qingji, the others watch her with longing. He Junyi deliberately opens his leather jacket slightly, revealing his sun-kissed abs to entice her. Kedong, dressed in a refined suit, exudes calm charm. Earlier, I had clung to Qingji for the sake of studying, so beginning tonight, the 8 of you will take turns spending a day with me. I shall rest for a week each month, and Qingji will join next month, allowing me 3 days of solitude. Sister, I'll begin tonight. Luo Yao adjusted his hairstyle, casting a flirtatious glance her way, murmuring in a husky tone. Luo Yao, you wish to indulge first? I'll go ahead. You go first? Soft treasure, you decide. The room erupted into a cacophony of voices. Emperor Chinji felt the looming 30 days until next month stretch endlessly. She raised her hand to silence the raucous men. Quiet. Quiet, listen to me. Kodong and the others fell silent. Her gaze swept across their expressions, resolute in her decision not to shortchange herself. Tonight, a sumptuous feast awaits. And tomorrow, a taste of sweetness. In the family group, she issued an announcement. The order of attendance for February: Monday, Kodong; Tuesday, Samuel; Wednesday, Davidson; Thursday, Luo Yao; Friday, Heijuan Yuan; Saturday, Heijuan Yen; Weekend, Heijuan Yi; next Monday, Qin Feng. They shall rotate accordingly. I have posted this in the group announcement. Follow it. Kodong promptly stood, leaning close to her ear, his voice low and magnetic. Wife, I shall prepare now to ensure your satisfaction tonight. With that, he strode upstairs, his back exuding confidence. Qin Feng flexed his arms, muscles rippling, lost in his thoughts. Soft treasure, by placing me last, do you mean to save the best for the end? His deep voice resonated in the living room. Meeting his questioning gaze, she could only nod. Later that night, she emerged from the bathroom, clad in a moderately thin one-piece nightgown, and opened the long-closed door to the master bedroom. Kodong sat on the edge of the bed, dressed in a pristine shirt and trousers, his meticulously styled hair accentuating his striking features, thick brows, large eyes, and a prominent nose. In a word, handsome, distinctively so. His gaze held a blend of 3 parts adoration and 7 parts flirtation. Wife. He suddenly rose, approaching her, and swept her into his arms, tossing her onto the expansive circular bed adorned with clover-patterned sheets. Her toes barely grazed the edge of the bed. Let me massage you first. Otherwise, you might cramp later. Kodong naturally held her foot, guiding it inward, his hands pausing on her calf, delivering a firm yet gentle massage. The white cufflinks on his shirt shimmered before her eyes, exuding an air of elegant restraint. His bronzed hands, imbued with warmth, glided along her calf, igniting a warmth within her. The subtle scent of an unknown incense wafted through the air, tantalizing her senses and rendering her somewhat entranced. The atmosphere shifted palpably. As he bent down to massage her calves, she quietly observed him. Among the 9 husbands, Kodong was the most skilled, his touch intoxicating yet devoid of toxicity. Her choice of him tonight stemmed from this very reason. Ah Dong, for the past 10 months, I was solely focused on my studies, neglecting you all. Will you hold it against me? She pressed his hand down, turning his face to meet hers. Kodong's dark eyes sparkled with a glimmer of mischief, a smile gracing his lips. If you sufficiently make it up to me tonight, I want to hold it against you. Have you decided on what position to use? Before she could respond, he lay back, rolling to embrace her. Without waiting for her answer, he kissed her passionately. After their fervent entanglement, she leaned against Kodong, her breath gradually evening out. He gently caressed her hair, speaking softly. Wife, there should be no significant matters ahead. You cannot neglect me any longer. She lightly huffed. ISNT, this already me making it up to you? Chapter 192, The Grand Conclusion, Part 1. 10 days later, the family relocated to the Imperial Star Palace. The former empress and her elderly consorts enjoyed their retirement in a tranquil villa within the palace. Emperor Chinji had ascended from prince to consort, with her other 8 husbands similarly elevated to the status of consort. Their newborn daughter, Lu Qingxue, was now the Grand Princess, having been born less than 5 days prior. In half an hour, the Empress's coronation ceremony would commence. She donned a custom-made blue and gold gown befitting an empress. Once adorned, she turned to find her 9 husbands, dressed in consort attire, amusing themselves beside the cradle of their little one. Snow Treasure smiled at me. Give Daddy another smile, dear. Smile, and you get a sip of milk. No smile, no milk. Hey Juanyi, you silly bird. With a dad like you, Snow Treasure will starve. Snow Treasure. I am her father, not them. She sighed, rising to approach the cradle, gently pushing the husbands aside. Let me take a look at Snow Treasure. The little one nestled in her swaddling, her tiny face still crinkled. Her features resembled Samuel's, while her eye color favored her mother. And her hair color was inherited from Emperor Chinji. Even at birth, she possessed a pair of tiny wings, her body cool to the touch. The family could not determine which race their daughter belonged to. Davidson stated that their daughter inherited his genes, suggesting she would outlive the mixed-blood offspring of exotic beasts, potentially living for 400 years if well cared for. She too wondered what her daughter would ultimately become and whether she would live that long. Snow Treasure is at a growing stage. You all mustn't constantly wake her. She admonished the first-time fathers, then softly cooed to the little one, Snow Treasure. Be good, and close your eyes to sleep. The tiny babe seemed to understand, closing her eyes the moment she finished speaking. Soft Treasure. Let us place Snow Treasure in the nursery, under the care of Ling. It's getting late. We should head to the temple. Samuel, feeling tender towards Lu Qingxue for resembling him, eagerly vied with the others to care for the little one. I agree. I concur. I have no objections. The baby is still small. It's safer in the nursery. Once they had settled the little one, the 10 of them made their way from the chambers to the temple. The palace, constructed in the style of ancient palatial architecture as per historical records, sprawled across a vast area, exuding an antique charm with a strikingly modern interior. Surrounded by her 9 extraordinary husbands, she walked step by step along the corridor leading to the temple. The temple was a cosmic masterpiece, with its vast domed glass windows framing the swirling nebulae. Twinkling star clusters and distant quasars, enveloped in an indescribable energy field. The sides of the hall were already filled with attendees. Upon her arrival, the palace attendants promptly announced to the waiting crowd, the new empress and her consorts enter the hall. All guests rose to welcome her. The ceremonial procession played music along the sides of the meteor path in the center of the hall as she and her 9 companions leisurely traversed toward the eternal throne. The leaders of various interstellar industries and high-ranking political figures bowed their heads in utmost reverence. An invisible wave of spiritual energy flowed through the temple, conveying submission, awe, and anticipation. She approached the throne, where the former empress, supported by 2 palace attendants, gracefully advanced towards her, a high priest trailing behind, cradling a crown. The crown, crafted from a silvery metal that was neither gold nor jade, boasted a simple yet opulent design, resembling a miniature model of a galaxy. It was breathtakingly beautiful. The high priest solemnly proclaimed in an ancient ceremonial tongue, in the presence of the celestial vault and under the watchful gaze of myriad races, Lu Ruan. Do you accept this crown, shouldering the monumental duty of guiding the starfolk towards a luminous future? Regardless of triumph or disgrace, regardless of the celestial cycles. Will this oath remain unwavering? I do. Her vow resonated powerfully, echoing throughout the sanctum. The high priest nodded slightly, as the former empress gently lifted the crown and placed it upon her head. The moment the crown made contact, a surge of indescribable, overwhelming energy erupted from it, instantly enveloping the entire sanctuary. A radiant golden light emanated from her, harmonizing with the starlight of the dome above. Within the temple, all knelt on one knee, in unison proclaiming, "Long live Her Majesty the Empress." The sound reverberated like a tsunami, marking the zenith of the coronation ceremony. After a brief pause, silence gradually settled within the hall. She gracefully took her seat upon the throne, and after she was seated, the 9 consorts took their designated places, while the former empress and the high priest withdrew. She gazed at the several hundred individuals still kneeling before her, her heart filled with profound emotion. Rise, her voice, imbued with a divine authority yet tempered with warmth, commanded. The assembly stood. In an instant, she noticed Jean Foam closest to her, grinning foolishly. Di Chun maintained his characteristic regal aloofness. The others bore expressions of pride, beaming with admiration for her. Chapter 193. The Conclusion, Part 2. The day following the coronation ceremony, in the executive conference room of the Imperial Star Prefecture building, she convened a meeting with senior officials to discuss reforms to the taxation system. Among the attendees were 9 officials, 1 federal chief executive, and 8 planetary commanders. As long as a simple majority approved, the new decree could be enacted. In summary, I propose the abolition of the single tax for all scavengers. Who is in favor and who is opposed? I am in favor. 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 I oppose. The Empress cast 1 vote in favor. The Assembly voted 8 in favor and 1 against. Thus the new decree passed. She exhaled in relief, lifting her glass to quench her parched throat after an hour of debate. At last, she had completed her final task. The Empress possessed a veto power. Any policy proposed by the officials could not be implemented if she opposed it. Simultaneously, her significant decisions also required parliamentary approval to be executed. This was the very reason she had engaged in a lengthy hour of debate with the officials. Now that the decree has passed, you are to execute it promptly. This meeting is adjourned. Yes, Your Majesty, the officials responded in unison. She rose and exited the room. Entering the Empress's office. Her office, situated on the top floor, was spacious, and through the windows, one could behold the bustling skyline of the Imperial Star. Dichen stood by the window, seemingly lost in thought. Upon her entrance, he sensed her presence, turning with his exquisitely tailored royal garb swaying gracefully, a sight to behold. With a single stride, Dichen approached her, exuding an air of noble elegance. The sound-dampening floor absorbed his footsteps, yet they resonated within her heart. Truly, a paragon of aristocracy? Darling, was everything smooth sailing? Dichen inquired in a deep voice, laced with concern. After an hour of stalemate, it finally passed. She settled into her office chair, contemplating before instructing, Chen, I need you to undertake something of great importance. Dichen sat beside her, his long fingers brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. What is it? She replied earnestly. The issue of producing daughters must be addressed promptly. Seek out the finest experts in biology, medicine, and mechanics to establish a research institute dedicated solely to the study of machine-assisted birthing of female infants. If you encounter any obstacles, call upon me. I shall grant you the necessary authorizations. During the previous Empress's reign, encouragement was given to interstellar women to bear more children, prompting doctors to investigate the challenges of producing daughters. However, no breakthroughs were achieved. If she could gather the brightest minds from various fields to collaborate and deliberate for a decade or two, the technological barriers to machine-assisted birthing of female infants could certainly be overcome. After all, machines could already assist couples in producing male offspring. Now, as Empress, she need only provide financial, material, and human resources. Rest assured, I will handle this. You shall have results within a week, Dichen replied, planting a gentle kiss on her cheek before moving to the newly established secretary's desk, taking his seat, and beginning his work. She watched him work diligently, realizing he was indeed her invaluable aide. Retracting her gaze, she commenced her own work. The new tax decree was disseminated. Official news spread widely across the Star Network, prompting immediate action from various prefectures. The efficiency of interstellar administration was remarkable. Soon, the scavengers, making up 5 of the total population, approximately 4 billion, received the news. The gathering places of scavengers buzzed with excitement. Clad in simple attire, they cheered, "Long live the Empress." We cast our vote for the new Empress because she revealed her identity, believing her reign would be free from interplanetary wars. Little did we expect that on her very first day, she would abolish the wretched single tax. Thank the heavens. An elder from the Capra Star gathering place wept tears of joy. Without the burden of the single tax, we can save up star coins for a few years and buy a small house to live in. Empress Lu truly cares for us common folk. Today would be etched into the annals of history. Across the interstellar web, netizens fervently discussed the new decree. Lu Ruan, however, was oblivious to the online commotion, instead messaging the 3 Hakong brothers in her office. Upon receiving her message, the brother known as Hakong Yen, who was at home caring for children, felt a familiar voice echo in her mind. Congratulations, host, for simultaneously assisting Hakong Yen, Hakong Yuan, and Hakong Yi in realizing their wish of abolishing the interstellar scavenger single tax, earning 35 wish points. Your cumulative wish points have now reached 100. Please close your eyes, host. As she shut her eyes, a dumpling-shaped ethereal figure floated above her. An unknown energy cascaded down from above her head like flowing incense, enveloping her entirely before merging within her, nourishing every cell in her body. She felt as though a gentle electric current had passed through her, leaving her tingling all over. 10 minutes later, she sensed her body felt remarkably light. Congratulations, host, for attaining a lifespan of 500 years. She opened her eyes and rose to gaze into the mirror in the restroom. The reflection of the Empress clad in resplendent attire appeared a decade younger, her visage reminiscent of her 20s, pure and enchanting, her skin notably fairer. Yet her once deep, dark eyes no longer held the same clarity, now glimmering with a sharpness. While her appearance had rejuvenated, her inner peace remained elusive. She shook her head with a smile, returning to her office and stepping to the window to gaze at the distant skyscrapers, bustling streets, and the mechanical dogs that occasionally passed by. Unbeknownst to her, Dichen had approached from behind. "Are you tired?" His voice, imbued with a metallic resonance, inquired from behind her. "Not at all. I'm simply admiring the scenery. If you encounter tasks you wish to avoid, feel free to delegate them to me. Having assisted the former Empress with her affairs for many years, I am quite familiar with the processes," Dichen suggested, believing she was weary from work and seeking relaxation. She turned, looking up at Dichen. Raising an eyebrow, are you suggesting I slack off? I am not advocating for idleness. I merely suggest you take your time as you acclimate. In the realm of denial, Di Chen's mind was beset by an inexplicable illusion that his beloved wife had suddenly regained her youth, recalling her previous aversion to tilting her head to gaze upon others. He bent down to lift her gently, placing her upon the leisure sofa. Lu Ruan leaned against the couch, casting a glance at the time. Only an hour remained until the end of her workday. The thought of wielding significant power and having realized her wish for longevity warmed her heart, and the idea of several exquisite men in the palace awaiting her return filled her with an indescribable elation. The dream of an ideal life after traversing the stars had indeed materialized. Di Chen also glanced at the clock upon the wall. Darling, you haven't allowed me to accompany you at night this month. Shall we extend our working hours? He closed the doors and windows, then sat beside her, shifting her onto his lap. Aren't you concerned that they might conspire against you upon your return home? Instead of sitting down, she leaned sideways against Di Chen's chest, her hands resting upon his shoulders as she locked her gaze with his azure eyes, smiling. What shall we do about this unexpectedly clingy and frivolous man? Fear not. Di Chen responded with calm assurance, his voice husky. She playfully tapped his nose and leaned in to kiss him. Epilogue 1. Husband assists her in selecting followers. Time flowed like a gentle stream. 5 years later. So much had transpired within these years. Upon witnessing her rejuvenation, Davidson conducted a thorough examination. Discovering a significant transformation in her constitution, her lifespan had been extended to an astonishing 500 years, a revelation that brought him immense joy. The other men, upon learning of this, celebrated for an entire day, afterward turning their attention to health and wellness. The research institute she had established yielded preliminary results under human intervention. The survival rate of in vitro fertilized XX-type embryos returned to the maternal body was a mere 1 in 10. In the newly developed incubators, the survival probability decreased to 1%. Celebrations erupted across the stars for 3 days. She was exalted by the citizens of the stars, becoming a beloved empress throughout history. Life was harmonious and blissful. The only blemish in this idyllic existence was their daughter, who resembled an interstellar version of Lin Daiyu, delicate and heart-wrenching, forever burdened with a small handbag filled with medicinal potions for her ailments. As a mother, this weighed heavily on her heart. Finally, one afternoon, she summoned her husbands, revealing a decision she had long harbored. Looking at the 9 men seated solemnly in the inner palace, she spoke gravely. Arson, I wish to discuss something with you all. The 9 men gazed at her with gentle eyes, the passage of time leaving only faint traces upon their exquisite features, unchanged from 5 years prior. Thoughts of their daughter spurred her to continue. I wish to rematch and select a few new individuals. The grip of the 9 men tightened, their eyes deep as abysses, expressions turning solemn. For all these years, they had complied with her wishes without question. Her proposition to match with new suitors left them speechless. The atmosphere grew tense. I can opt not to bind myself to them. She sensed the shift in mood and added. Davidson felt that the matter was not so simple. Over the years, his wife had devoted herself to advocating for the welfare of the common star citizens. She was not a woman seeking novelty. Their bond had deepened rather than waned. Her sudden desire to match with newcomers must have been driven by a significant reason. Lu Ruan, if you seek followers, I shall assist you in filtering them, he said, his expression softening, earnest in his tone. My dear, you hold a prestigious status. There are many eligible bachelors genetically compatible with you. However, among them, some may harbor insincere intentions and questionable character. We shall compile a list for you to choose from. Kudong seemed to grasp the underlying implications, agreed. She nodded, her nose suddenly feeling a twinge of emotion. Her husbands meticulously helped her sift through potential followers. They were not merely lovers but family. Only kin would act in such a manner. Yuan, conduct a background check, commanded He-jun to He-jun Yuan. He turned his gaze to Davidson. You commence with the gene database and compile a preliminary list. I will investigate. 2 hours later, she received 30 profiles. She spread the papers upon the table, scanning each one from left to right. The first face was unassuming, compliant, with a clean background and industry. A decent individual, yet she felt no spark of interest. The second was a military academy instructor, handsome and dignified, but stationed far from the imperial star. The third was from a toxic race. She bypassed it. As she continued, she suddenly spotted 2 familiar names, Dai Wei and Yi Yu. She paused, surprised to find them included in the candidate list. Dai Wei had joined the research institute she had proposed 5 years prior and was now on the Imperial Star, due to his uncle's influence. She had interacted with him more frequently over the years. Yi resided on F-1008 star. After leaving that star, she had not seen him again. After reviewing all 30 profiles, she had yet to make a decision. Gathering the papers, she placed them in a folder. Ruan, these are potential candidates. Take your time to consider. I will go to the research institute to fetch Shui Bao. Davidson rose from the luxurious sofa.
Just then the doorbell chimed.
Soon, Dai Wei appeared at the entrance, holding a 5-year-old girl by the hand. Mother Empress, I'm back. Lu Qingxue panted slightly, calling out to her in a sweet, tender voice. The little girl was slender, reminiscent of a young Lin Daiyu. Frequently misplacing her spatial ring, she preferred to carry a small bag when going out. Shui Bao, come here. The little girl dashed into her embrace, then greeted each of her fathers in turn. Wild Daddy, Feng Daddy, Yao Daddy. The child's bright voice melted the hearts of her husbands. After casually handing Lu Qingxue to one of her husbands, she glanced toward the door. Dai Wei, standing closer to Davidson, intended to leave after delivering the girl. Uncle, I've delivered Qingxue. I have other matters to attend to. Davidson nodded slightly, and Dai Wei, resembling him closely, turned to leave. Goodbye, brother. The little girl called out toward the door. Her utterance of brother made her momentarily reconsider Dai Wei's place on the candidate list. Seated again, she thought of Yiyu, extracting a profile from the neatly stacked documents to find his contact information, adding him. At the military base on F-1008 star, Yiyu lay in his single dormitory when his light brain suddenly illuminated. A system message requesting to add a friend popped up. His strikingly clear eyes widened as he recognized the applicant's profile and name, his heart skipping a beat. After a few seconds, he sprang out of bed, sitting at a simple wooden desk. He retrieved a bottle of water from his space and gulped it down. Once he finished, he nervously clicked to accept the request. Epilogue 2, almost believing she could set aside a fantastical notion. Friend request accepted. Yi sorted through his thousands of friends to isolate the new addition, tagging it with the nickname, Mist in the Sky. After a moment of anticipation, his new friend remained silent, seemingly elusive. He opened the input box and typed, the construction work on F-1008 star was completed yesterday. Please instruct me on what the Empress requires. Hesitating over his drafted message, his finger hovered above the send button, yet he refrained from acting. His authority was limited, and his jurisdiction confined, should there be an urgent matter. He assumed it would be relayed through Qin Foam or General Rain. Thus, her pursuit of him was not for official matters, but rather for personal ones. A flicker of doubt crossed Yi's eyes. He slowly deleted the text in the input box, intent on rephrasing his thoughts, yet a torrent of words surged within him. Unable to breach the barrier of his restraint. Ultimately, he sent merely a brief greeting, Your Majesty, peace. After dispatching the message, he exited his solitary dormitory and settled at a vantage point outside the base. In the pitch-black night, the skyline shimmered with buildings stretching for miles, twinkling like stars. In truth, after she bid him farewell, he and his comrades had toiled tirelessly on this planet, constructing homes, transportation systems, and various facilities, working day and night until yesterday, when the project was finally completed. Aside from casting his vote for her during her campaign 5 years ago, he had resolutely refrained from following her closely, almost convincing himself that he could relinquish his infatuation. However, the recent friend request drew him back to his original state. After exchanging pleasantries with her family, Lu Ruan retreated to her room for a brief respite. Reclining on a comfortable couch, she activated her holographic device to discover that Yi had accepted her friend request, accompanied by a new message, Your Majesty, peace. On the Imperial Star, it was afternoon, while on the F-1008 star, it was night. Surely, he must be free now? She opened the chat window and sent a smiley emoji, smiled JPG. In order to forge a contractual relationship, she needed to accumulate wish power to save her daughter. Yet she remained uncertain of Yi's sentiments toward her. Throughout the past 9 years, he had discreetly assisted her in resolving numerous predicaments, and after reassessing her opinion of him, she found him rather agreeable. It was time to gauge his stance. After a minute of anticipation following her smiley, he responded with an unexpected inquiry, How have you fared on the Imperial Star these past 5 years? She replied with an equally surprising statement, Well, and you?
Not so well. Oh.
A moment later, he continued, the construction work on F-1008 star has been arduous. She was momentarily taken aback by his message. A soldier could never be daunted by hardship. Her intuition suggested he was implying something, yet she lacked concrete evidence. Nevertheless, judging by Yi's tone, he was indeed approachable. She seized the opportunity to inform him of her plans. In 2 days, I will visit the new main star to inspect the soldiers' accomplishments. If convenient, you may serve as my guide. The new main star had just been completed, and as the interstellar empress, she needed to conduct an inspection. It would also be an opportune moment to engage with Yi. Certainly, that will be no issue. Then let us proceed with this arrangement. Their brief exchange concluded, and she delved into Yi's profile. Name, Yi. Gender, male. Age, 44, 9 years her senior. Height, 193 centimeters. Weight, 82 kilograms. Mixed race, Black Dragon Clan. Occupation, King of Soldiers. Family coordinates, no family on Gamma Star. Profile, Yi enlisted at 17, became the youngest King of Soldiers at 25. Achievements, 11 first-class merits, 30 second-class merits, numerous third-class merits. A few days later, on a radiant morning, she arrived at the new main star, her golden spacecraft touching down as she exited the cabin. Thousands of high-ranking military personnel stood at the base entrance to welcome her, among them a lean, dark-skinned, handsome man Yi. The moment Yi caught sight of her, his eyes briefly sparkled before he averted his gaze, seeking to avoid any semblance of impropriety. All hail Her Majesty the Empress, the assembled soldiers proclaimed, and Yi dutifully knelt on one knee in reverence. A wave of fervent applause surged forth, warming the air around them. Gazing at the steadfast soldiers, she declared, "Everyone has labored for 6 years to construct the new main star. Your efforts are deeply appreciated. There is no need for excessive formality. Rise." Following a grand reception, she dismissed the senior officers and, accompanied by 2 attendants, boarded the inspection vessel. Yi piloted the craft while also serving as the tour guide for this inspection. She sat beside him, with her 2 transparent attendants positioned nearby, ready to assist her. "Your Majesty, please ensure you are seated securely," Yi remarked dutifully as he noticed the elegantly dressed woman beside him settle in, a glimmer of unexpressed sentiment flickering in his eyes. She nodded slightly. The vessel ascended swiftly, soaring towards the cluster of buildings several kilometers away. As they glided over the structures, the magnificent vista was captivating. With the completion of the new main star, it was divided into 200 zones. The nearest to the base was designated as Zone 1, intended for military housing, while Zone 2, rich in mineral resources, was earmarked for heavy industry. Yi provided a thorough introduction, his voice deep and melodious, his pace measured, and the content clear and comprehensible. It was evident he had prepared extensively prior to her arrival. As the vessel glided smoothly along, the screen displayed aerial views, and she diligently absorbed the details of the new main star as per Yi's descriptions. Upon leaving Zone 1 and entering an uninhabited area, she turned her gaze towards him. Her purpose for visiting this star extended beyond mere inspection. Engaging with Yi was also a crucial aspect of her mission. Clad in a tailored military uniform, Yi sat upright, his posture immaculate, his skin a shade darker, possibly a result of sun exposure or the integration of Black Dragon genes. Nonetheless, his complexion did not detract from his presence. Amidst a crowd, he would still stand out conspicuously. She observed him quietly until she noticed him straighten his posture, seemingly nervous. "Yi," she called softly. He abruptly turned his head, instinctively responding, "Your Majesty, how may I assist you?" His voice resonated with strength. In the next heartbeat, he appeared to realize his previous overreaction, gradually lowering his gaze. Adopting a cautious demeanor, reluctant to meet her eyes as boldly as he had during their first encounter. "I do not wish to give you orders." The air fell silent for a few moments as she gently clarified. Yi nodded lightly, his eyes remaining averted from the woman beside him, fearful of causing offense. As he maintained a downcast gaze to conceal the light within, "I just wanted to say that your explanations are exceptionally clear, surpassing that of a professional commentator. It is impossible to cover all 200 zones in just one day. I shall continue to rely on your expertise for the next 2 days. That is my duty. You may call upon me at any time for anything else you require." As he navigated the vessel, a swirl of emotions churned within him. After 6 long years, he was finally in her presence, once more. She appeared younger than before, radiating brilliance, her status elevated beyond what he could have ever desired. She was no longer the woman he could secretly admire from afar, but rather a distinguished empress, beyond his reach. "All right," she smiled gently at Yi. Turning her gaze forward, no longer glancing at him. Yi likewise focused ahead, the vessel proceeding at a slightly slower pace, lost in contemplation. In her mind, she called upon the little one. Little one, I wish to make a new wish, for Lu Qingxue to enjoy good health and be free from the torment of her genetic illness.
Ding.
Received. Does this wish require a significant amount of wish power? To restore Lu Qingxue's health, the level of difficulty is relatively low, requiring only a fraction of the willpower needed for your previous wish. She felt a wave of joy. Before 2 seconds had passed, an even greater delight arrived. Host, I have splendid news for you. The little bundle has now upgraded to an intermediate system. By simply marking the soul of your task subject, you can establish a contract. By assisting the task subject in fulfilling their wishes, the little bundle can absorb willpower to help realize your desires. Her brows arched in intrigue. Previously, a physical mark was necessary, but now, with the upgrade to a soul mark, the challenge has diminished. Host, you now need only 2 hours of skin contact with the task target to forge a contract. Upon inquiring about their wishes, holding hands, skin contact, does that count as skin contact? Of course, it does. Her eyes sparkled with renewed excitement. With the little bundle's upgrade, the contract had become simpler, an admirable feat. Yi, she called out to the unwavering figure of Yi, who was steadily piloting the battleship.
Please speak.
Yi turned his head to look at her, his expression surprisingly calm. Today, we will inspect 10 districts before returning. Please take me to District 1. I wish to observe the layout details firsthand. Very well. Yi nodded in response. After inspecting all 10 districts, the specialized battleship landed near District 1. By this time, dusk had settled. Apart from a few station soldiers, there were scarcely any other souls around. After disembarking from the battleship, she was accompanied solely by Yi and 2 attendants. With 3 hours until darkness falls, you two go prepare dinner aboard the ship. General Yi and I will further inspect District 1. Understood. The 2 attendants remained on the battleship. Next to her, only Yi lingered. Upon noticing Lu Ruan's deliberate dismissal of the attendants, Yi's heart raced slightly, and an inexplicable anticipation flickered in his brow.
Please follow me.
In the 4th side story, would you be willing to be my follower? Under Yi's guidance, she traversed a luminous blue barrier and entered District 1. Before her lay broad and pristine streets, flanked by densely packed buildings with a matte silver-gray finish. Walking upon the specially paved road, the fresh air, purified and imbued with warmth, flowed gently around her. Which area would you like to see first? Yi inquired, his pace leisurely, trailing half a step behind her. His voice tinged with a husky timbre. Let's just walk straight. I wish to observe at my leisure. She already understood much from her aerial inspection. Having Yi escort her was merely a pretext. District 1 could accommodate 500,000 inhabitants, and this street stretched for 10 kilometers, connecting most of the residential areas. After walking for about a kilometer, the man, seemingly inexhaustible, continued to speak animatedly beside her. She paused, turning to Yi, and retrieved a bottle of water to offer him. However, as she turned, Yi nearly bumped into her. He quickly stepped back with an apologetic expression, and upon noticing the bottle in her hand, he thoughtfully produced a leisure chair, placing it in the center of the path, gesturing for her to sit. After such a long walk, you must be weary. Please, take a moment to rest. She hesitated for a couple of seconds before gracefully sitting down. Then, she extended the bottle of water to him, who stood upright. Yi, you've been explaining to me all day. You must be tired as well. Please, drink some water and take a break. Yi gazed at Lu Ruan's delicate fingers and the petite bottle, momentarily stunned. Was she expressing concern for him? Or perhaps not. Just as Lu Ruan prepared to withdraw her hand. Thank you, Your Majesty, for the water. Yi swiftly accepted the bottle from her hand, the abruptness of his motion causing their fingers to brush, sending a jolt through his heart. He twisted open the cap, took a gulp, and carefully resealed the bottle, tucking it away. This was water given by her. He wished to keep it, knowing that opportunities to see her again would be rare once her inspection concluded. After Lu Ruan watched Yi stow the bottle, she tossed her hair back, exposing the nape of her neck, and casually said, Yi, my neck feels a bit stiff. Could you give me a massage? Of course. His somewhat rough hands quickly found their way to her neck, applying just the right amount of pressure as he began to massage. She gently closed her eyes, gradually relaxing. She wondered if having Yi massage her for 2 hours would suffice for the marking. Host. Maintaining 2 hours of skin contact with a task subject is essential for a successful marking. Interruptions will result in failure. The little bundle answered her question. And she understood. A 2-hour massage was not feasible. To achieve a successful marking, holding hands was the simplest method. While she kept her eyes shut, she remained unaware that Yi was gazing deeply at her. His eyes flickered with a blend of struggle and a long-lost yearning, emanating a conflicting aura. He vividly recalled the moment 6 years prior when the woman bid him farewell. She had stated she didn't dislike him, but simply held no feelings for him. Then she departed. He had spent 6 years on the star, purposely avoiding thoughts of her, attempting to move on, yet her shadow haunted his dreams.
Now.
With her reaching out to him, he found it increasingly difficult to let go. Unrequited affection was merely a self-imposed cocoon, yet he bore no regrets. For it was a cherished sentiment he held close to his heart.
Yi.
Yes. Would you be willing to be my follower? Lu Ruan, having come to a conclusion, inquired of Yi, who stood behind her. She could not simply take his hand for 2 hours without reason, pretending as if nothing had transpired, playing with his emotions. Such intimacy was reserved for companions or followers, and she could now bestow upon him a title. Upon asking, Yi's response was delayed, taking 2 seconds before he managed to reply. Yes, I am willing. His voice trembled slightly. A smile tugged at her lips as she produced a new chair and placed it beside her, gently uttering, sit. Yi navigated around her to take a seat beside her. Just as he intended to resume her massage, she grasped one of his hands, intertwining their fingers under his fervent gaze. Yi's heart thundered. He had previously avoided looking directly at her, but at that moment, he dared to meet her eyes, striving to decipher her thoughts and emotions. Their gazes intertwined, one tender, the other imbued with inquiry. She smiled softly. Will you accompany me for a while? Yes, Yi replied, his voice husky, the corners of his mouth lifting into a genuine smile that illuminated his otherwise dark features. He felt the softness of her hand, a warmth surging within him, as if he were adrift in a dream, so surreal. He settled into silence, and she followed suit, allowing time to flow. 2 hours passed, during which Yi reflected on the events of his past life and envisioned the possibilities of his future. At last, a cheerful, youthful voice echoed in his mind. Congratulations, host and Yi, on achieving the soul marking and establishing a contract. Inquire about his wishes. Yi aspired to become the highest executive officer of the Federation, and fulfilling this wish would yield 99 units of willpower. Suddenly, she released Yi's hand, scrutinizing him with a discerning gaze. He wished to abandon the military for politics, and to establish a force that could counterbalance the imperial authority. This man harbored grand ambitions. In the 5th side story, A Kiss, under Lu Ruan's scrutinizing gaze, Yi grew increasingly anxious, worried that there was something about him that displeased her. As he felt a surge of nervousness for but a brief moment, Lu Ruan noticed the encroaching darkness and rose to her feet, retracting the chair she had provided for Yiqing. Yiqing also stood up, folding away the chair that the woman had offered him. His gaze, intense yet submissive, fixed upon Lu Ruan from an elevated stance, reminiscent of a tamed black wolf awaiting its master's affection. Shall we step outside? Lu Ruan inquired, her eyes curving into a gentle smile as she delicately pinched Yiqing's cheek before retracting her hand and turning to lead the way along the street toward the entrance of Zone 1. Yiqing, lightly touching the spot where she had just caressed him, allowed a smile to play upon his lips. The unattainable her had shown him tenderness. Assessing the distance to the entrance, which was neither too long nor too short, he felt a tinge of regret for not being able to cradle such a precious treasure closer. When he lifted his gaze, he found Lu Ruan already 2 meters ahead of him. He hastened to catch up to her graceful figure, then slowed his pace to trail behind her, taking careful steps. The remnants of the setting sun bathed the two in a warm glow, elongating their shadows on the ground, intertwining them in a way that added a unique charm to the desolate street. Their shadows vanished as darkness enveloped the surroundings, rendering the path indistinguishable. Suddenly, a pair of strong hands landed on her shoulder, causing her to halt. She turned to inquire what was amiss with Yiqing, who then guided her into a narrow alley on the left, pressing her against the wall. His voice, husky and magnetic, resonated in the darkness. Your Majesty, may I dare to be bold as your follower this time? In the shadows, his breath brushed against her face, warm and imbued with a subtle woody aroma, slightly tantalizing. She hesitated to respond immediately, reflecting on how this man had become far more cautious than he had been 15 years prior. From now on, you need not call me your Majesty in my presence. Just address me by my name, she replied in a different manner. With her words, Yiqing seemed to receive her permission, leaning down to kiss her. She gradually wrapped her arms around Yi Qing's taut waist, reciprocating his gentle kiss in the darkness.
Yet.
Yi Qing appeared to be a beast that had just escaped from captivity, and upon tasting freedom, his movements grew wild, his breathing increasingly frantic. She gently pushed against him. I apologize. I find it difficult to maintain control. Yi Qing paused for a moment, then greedily deepened the kiss. His palm pressed against the wall, holding her close, as if he sought to unleash 15 years' worth of repressed emotions in that single moment. Her soft, elegant attire was nearly creased beneath his rigid military uniform. Lu, I do not yearn for us to be bound together, but may I continue to follow you unceasingly? After what felt like an eternity, Yi Qing finally relented, releasing her with a raspy voice. I promise. Her reply was a gentle, yes, I agree. Upon receiving this assurance, Yi Qing felt as if his heart had ignited, wishing to cherish Lu Ruan repeatedly, embedding her into his very being. The surroundings felt inappropriate for such fervent desires, and he forcibly suppressed his yearning thoughts and unaccustomed sensations. He then activated the light brain for illumination, meticulously arranging Lu Ruan's attire before respectfully taking her hand to exit the alley. The two departed from Zone 1 and approached the warship, boarding the inspection vessel. Observing from their posts, several soldiers stationed near Zone 1 witnessed Yi Qing holding Lu Ruan's hand and silently criticized him. General Yi had previously gone to great lengths to alleviate the Empress's romantic troubles, yet now he entangles himself with her as well. Noticing the prying eyes, Lu Ruan glanced toward the source of the scrutiny and saw soldiers in the watchtower glaring at Yi Qing beside her. She cleared her throat and quickly entered the ship's cabin, shutting the door behind her. After enjoying a sumptuous dinner prepared by the attendants in the ship's cabin, Yi Qing and Lu Ruan settled into the control room, where he was no longer as restrained while piloting the warship. The vessel gradually made its way toward the base. One of his hands clasped hers, his bright, profound eyes gazing into hers. How about spending the night at the dormitory with me? He asked casually, a hint of tenderness flickering across his otherwise dark features. Not particularly appealing, Lu Ruan replied with a gentle smile, declining his invitation. Realizing his abruptness, Yi Qing felt a pang of anxiety and quickly scrutinized Lu Ruan's expression, relaxing only when he discerned no hint of reproach. He was indeed too eager. Now that he could remain her follower, he decided to take his time, waiting patiently for the day she would truly acknowledge him. At the very least, he could approach her now, no longer relegated to observing from a distance, or even being unable to catch a glimpse of her. After several days of inspections on the new main star, Lu Ruan returned to the Empire Star. The first order of business upon her return was to write Yi Qing a letter of recommendation, urging him to start his training in the provincial government of the Empire Star as an assistant to the most junior federal officials. The second matter was official business, while the last and most significant was a personal affair, to seek out her next follower. She perused 30 profiles for quite some time, eliminating Yi Qing and David. As the remaining candidates had commendable backgrounds, yet each possessed flaws she was reluctant to accept. Only one remained. Should she opt for familiarity? After much consideration, she decided to retain David while he assisted in escorting Lu Qingxue back to the palace. With 9 husbands generally preoccupied, they would not return home until 8 in the evening. It was now 6 o'clock, and the house was empty, prompting her to seek David's company privately. She sent her daughter away, saying, "Xue Bao, why don't you go play in your room for a while?" "All right, Mother Empress." Lu Qingxue obediently nodded before politely waving goodbye to David. "Brother, I'm off now." This wasn't the first time David had heard Lu Qingxue address him as brother. Each instance felt somewhat awkward. "Go ahead," he replied with a smile, waving goodbye to the little princess. Inside the hall, only the two remained. They sat facing each other across a table. Since joining the research institute, David had taken to wearing glasses, much like his uncle, though there were noticeable differences. Davidson sported gold-framed spectacles, exuding an air of reserved scholarly demeanor, while David, considerably younger, often donned dark clothing, and his gold-framed glasses hinted at a touch of depth beneath his charm. "Xiao Air, how has progress been at the research institute lately?" she inquired casually. "After achieving initial results, we've shifted our focus to researching biological incubators, aiming to improve the hatch rate from 1% to 10%. We are currently working diligently on these matters. Your uncle has been preoccupied with caring for your other 5 uncles, so please keep an eye on the institute's affairs." David replied gently, his gaze lingering on her. She fell silent, contemplating the somewhat peculiar atmosphere that had enveloped their encounters over the past few years. David never referred to her as aunt, opting for formal address in the presence of others, while when alone, he used a more casual you.
Beyond his choice of address,
He exhibited a remarkable sense of propriety, never crossing the boundaries. Yet, the occasional glances he cast betrayed the thoughts swirling within him. After much hesitation, she finally spoke. "Shao Heir, would you be willing to become my follower?" "I would," David replied without the slightest hesitation, his words flowing naturally. "I will not bind anyone again. I do not mind. Merely being qualified to remain by your side is sufficient for me." David smiled gracefully, a subtle ripple of emotion flickering within his gaze. Lu Ruan beckoned him over. "Come, sit here." David glanced at the space beside her and felt his heart race as he rose to take a seat beside her. Lu Ruan grasped David's hand, noticing his body stiffen. "Do not be tense." "I am not tense." 2 hours later. Congratulations to the host for achieving a soul bond with David, thereby establishing a contractual relationship. Wishing to inquire. David wishes for Lu Qingxue to refrain from calling him brother and instead address him as uncle. Fulfilling this wish will yield 1 point of wish power. Is it truly that simple? Is that even a wish? Although Lu Qingxue is young, she possesses a strong will, given her connection to her father. She insists on calling David brother. During their time at the research institute, David coaxed Lu Qingxue into calling him uncle. The frail little girl accused David of taking advantage of her father, delivering a stern reprimand to him on the spot. Thereafter, every time David made the request, Lu Qingxue would admonish him anew. She gazed at David in astonishment. It was truly unexpected that he cared about this. Moreover, was her little Dayu so fierce behind his back? Host, according to the memories I have accessed, David developed certain feelings for you after curing your stomach cancer 15 years ago, but Davidson's one-click rejection severed his opportunity. In the subsequent years, he has longed for a chance to reconnect with you. She withdrew her thoughts, contemplating how to persuade her daughter to change her address, while simultaneously retracting her hand from David's grasp. David produced a clean handkerchief, gently reclaiming the hand Lu Qingxue attempted to withdraw, meticulously drying the sweat from her palm. His expression was intensely focused, his movements soft and careful, as though he were tending to a priceless treasure. In the interlude, uncle and nephew. As David diligently wiped her hand, a slight tingling sensation arose in her palm, spreading to her heart. Noticing the man's concentrated demeanor, she refrained from interrupting him. Once he finished, David tucked the handkerchief away, and upon lifting his gaze, their eyes met. "May I call you Lu Bao?" The warm brown of his eyes reflected her diminutive figure clad in resplendent attire, a glimmer of water-like brilliance in their depths. A peculiar sensation flitted through her heart. Yet her expression remained unchanged. "You may only call me that when it is just the two of us." Upon receiving her answer, David suddenly removed his glasses, forcefully pushing her down onto the sofa. With one hand supporting her neck, he leaned in to kiss her. The unique fragrance of hybrid genes enveloped her breath, while his warm lips tantalizingly teased her senses. Her pupils dilated, taken aback by a delightful low chuckle that reached her ears.
Lu Bao.
"You allowed me to be your follower, and now there is no room for regret. Even if my little uncle were to cast me aside, I would not comply." As she regained her composure, she noticed a flush on David's face, his refined demeanor tinged with a hint of cunning. Had she unwittingly chosen a man of dual nature? "I have no regrets." "Then do not refuse me henceforth." David's warm lips reclaimed Lu Qingxue's, his eyes gently closing as he kissed her with fervor and intent. Gradually, Lu Qingxue began to embrace David, mentally positioning him among her followers. The atmosphere in the chamber grew increasingly fervent. Suddenly, she pushed the breathless David away, sitting upright. David opened his eyes, suppressing his impulses, and injected himself with a suppressant, steadying his breath. At that moment, 9 composed and handsome men entered the room, with Davidson at the forefront. The others, aware that Lu Qingxue had returned from the new main star, had hurried home earlier than planned.
Soft, Xiao Er.
David? The 9 men, seeing David and Lu Qingxue seated so closely, exchanged glances, filled with various thoughts. In the past, after her special treatment at the research institute, David would escort her to the door and leave immediately. Today, however, he lingered in the chamber, sitting so close to his wife. The follower chosen by his wife was unexpectedly him. Davidson was the first to approach Lu Qingxue. "Asen, Adong, Chun, he is one of my chosen followers." Lu Qingxue reintroduced David to her husbands while observing Davidson's expression. Surely, the uncle and nephew would not engage in anything inappropriate? Yet, she discerned no unusual emotions on Davidson's face. Just as she completed the introductions, David formally greeted her other 8 husbands for the first time. Hello. His casual tone echoed clearly in the chamber. No one responded to David's greeting. Suddenly, a piercing gaze, sharp as an eagle's, swept toward them. She looked up to find Qin Feng squinting at David, his eyes glinting like daggers, as if he wished to slay David 100 times over.
Hoiyun.
Having caught wind of her choice of followers, inquired Soft, who are the other followers you selected besides David? This question drew the attention of all the men in the chamber. Aside from Xiao Er, only Yi was left. After she answered, she noticed Qin Feng's eyes widen, his teeth gritting, displaying more agitation than when he learned that David was her chosen follower, as though he wished to pummel Yi without restraint. David, too, appeared on the verge of speech, silently gazing at her, as if questioning why he was not her sole follower. Before she could ponder further, Davidson soon stood before her. Xiao Er, come with me. He shot a glance at David, then seized his nephew by the arm. David rose and followed Davidson toward the door. The uncle and nephew found themselves at a loss for words. Their elongated figures, one dark and one light, faded from her view. In the interlude, her life. Lu Qingxue continued to speculate about what Davidson would say to David. Samuel settled beside her, his attire slightly disheveled, revealing his fair, sculpted chest, his androgynous face adorned with a subtle smile, exuding an air of delicate beauty that rendered age indiscernible. Since learning of her potential to live for 500 years, the old bull had adopted a sultry demeanor, often competing with the ever-abdominal revealing Sanhei. The lean yet powerful arms of the old bull enveloped her, drawing her close for a kiss before looking directly into her eyes. Soft bow, we have only 3 short days each month to be alone with you. How do you plan to arrange for Yi and David as your followers? Ku Dong and the others also regarded her with keen interest. This question seemed to hold great significance for them. She hesitated for a moment. You 9 will remain unchanged. I will reconsider the arrangements for the 2 of them. The status of followers is rather delicate. In the interstellar realm, some women boldly invite their followers to cohabit, while others strictly prohibit their entry into the home. Just as she finished speaking, her light brain suddenly illuminated. 3 new messages appeared. All from Yi. Lu, I have just arrived at the Imperial Star. And my house remains unrenovated. It's late. May I come to find you? I seek refuge for the night. Soft bow, you are mine tonight. The old bull tightened his embrace upon reading the messages, pressing her head against his subtly revealed chest. With each breath, she inhaled the scent of fresh grass. A glance at Kodong, He-jun, and Qin Feng revealed their varied expressions. Kodong looked somewhat fierce, while He-jun's eyes glimmered with menace, akin to a thief breaching a private domain. Qin Feng's expression was as cold as ice, and Di Chen's aloof demeanor intensified. While He-jun Yuan and He-jun Yi muttered amongst themselves, Sister, Yi cannot possibly lack a place to stay. He merely wishes to come find you. Luo Yao discerned Yi's intentions, a hint of ferocity tainting his handsome brow. She sought to soothe her husband's tempers. Yi had left the military for politics and had just arrived at the Imperial Star today, without a place to stay. The palace was vast, and tonight the attendants were instructed to prepare a room for him, as he would be departing the following day. There was no need for such hostility towards him. Shiru, allow him in. I have matters to discuss with him face to face, Qin Feng spoke. After she replied to Yi with a simple acknowledgement, she shifted her husband's attention. Old Sa, go check on Xuebao. Samuel rose, and Luo Yao promptly took the opportunity to sit beside her. Within moments, Samuel emerged with the deer-like Qinxue, who bore a striking resemblance to him. The men within the hall, eagerly awaiting Luo Yao's departure, finally diverted their gaze from her to the 5-year-old princess. Xuebao, come to daddy. He Journey was the first to open his arms, followed closely by He Junyuan and He Junyan, who did the same in unison. Seeing Luo Yao monopolizing her, Qin Feng could only amuse their daughter and opened his arms as well, wondering whom she would choose. Xuebao, Daddy Feng is here. Upon sighting his frail daughter, Di Chen's demeanor softened, his azure eyes brimmed with compassion as he beckoned, Little Shuer, come here so Daddy Chen can have a look. Cuddled in Luo Yao's embrace, she observed which father her daughter would gravitate towards this time. Under the gaze of everyone present, Lu Qinxue toddled over to the trio of black-clad men, ultimately leaping into He Junyuan's arms, her voice sweetly calling out, Daddy Yi hug. Such a good girl. Did the treatment hurt today? He Junyuan suppressed a smile as he embraced the little princess, casting a teasing glance at He Jun. Not at all. Xuebao, I'm right here. He Junyi dramatically gestured, nearly wishing to stick a label on himself to ensure the little princess did not misidentify her favorite daddy. Upon witnessing the princess's choice of He Junyi, Di Chun retracted his hand. Qin Feng felt a twinge of jealousy. Lu Soft turned her gaze away. Her daughter adored the playful daddy, but often mistook yen and yuan for him. Davidson and Dyer returned. Dyer had chosen to stay, sitting opposite her beside Davidson. The attendants were already preparing dinner. And over the years, the family had grown accustomed to gathering for dinner, no matter how busy the day had been, to keep her and their daughter company. Dyer was likely persuaded to remain by his uncle. Xiao Heir, once you're done with your tasks, feel free to join us for dinner, Davidson suggested. Sure, Dyer replied eagerly. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. She opened her holographic interface to grant entry, revealing a roguishly handsome face. Yi had arrived. No longer clad in military attire, he wore a fitted gray high-end t-shirt and black trousers, his athletic frame impeccably accentuated. She waved him in, come in. As Yi stepped into the hall, he was met with a room full of people. Aside from the 9 familiar faces, there was an unfamiliar man who bore a resemblance to Davidson. Greetings, I am Yi, a follower of Lu, he announced as he approached Lu Soft and stood beside her, introducing himself to the seated men. He then presented a meticulously prepared gift to Lu Qinxue. Little princess, it is a pleasure to meet you. This is a token from Uncle Yi. She urged her daughter, who was hesitant to accept the gift. Xue Bao. This is your Uncle Yi. Be sure to thank him. Thank you, Uncle Yi, Lu Qinxue said, accepting the gift box upon receiving encouragement from the adults. Dyer's gaze suddenly fixated on Yi. Unaware of Dyer's identity, Yi returned the unwelcoming stare. Coincidentally, I too am one of her followers, Dyer remarked coolly.
What?
Yi's demeanor grew serious, and the atmosphere between them thickened with tension, while her 9 husbands observed the unfolding drama. Xiaoru, I have some personal matters to discuss with Yi. I will return shortly for dinner. Qin Feng, having enjoyed the spectacle, stood and tugged Yi outside. What do you need to discuss? Come back soon, she called after them, pondering their exchange. The relationship between Yi and Qin Feng was quite close. It could be said that Qin Feng had nurtured Yi's fondness for her over time. Back in the base, he had always been aware of Yi's affections. And now their relationship felt somewhat awkward, akin to the tension between Davidson and Dyer. Xiaoru, there's no need for you to concern yourself with our mail matters. We shall return shortly, came the reassuring words as the door softly closed behind them. Yi and Qin Feng vanished from her sight. They returned half an hour later, with Yi appearing unwell, as though he had taken a beating from Qin Feng. The attendants had prepared dinner, and the family moved to the dining table, where the 2 newcomers, Yi and Dyer, jostled for space at her sides, earning them the piercing gazes of her 9 husbands. Please don't look so menacing, she remarked. Turning to Yi, are you all right? Yi gently shook his head, his features softening. He had come prepared for the possibility of a confrontation with Qin Feng, having chosen not to retaliate this time. However, he was uncertain about his restraint in the future. The 9 men, sensing the shift in mood, averted their intense stares, and the atmosphere returned to a harmonious state. Lu Soft, along with all her husbands and daughter, began their meal. A beautiful scene encapsulated within the grand opulence of the palace. The men's gazes inevitably followed Lu Soft, their one true love. In the year 5070 of the galactic calendar, 20 years had passed since Lu Soft had traversed into the interstellar realm, marking the 5th year since she had chosen Yi and Dyer as her followers. At last, she had fulfilled the wishes of both followers. Yi ascended to become the highest executive of the Federation, and her daughter willingly began to refer to Dyer as uncle. Her aspirations were also realized by her little one. The genetic illness that plagued her daughter was cured, restoring her health and transforming her into a princess endowed with multiple talents. The only regret was that after fulfilling her second wish, the little one was forcibly summoned back. Leaving her side, the system no longer occupied her life. With a tranquil heart, she embraced the passage of time alongside her loved ones as they aged together. Her 9 matched partners accepted the presence of Dyer and Yi, and the entire family enjoyed a warm and blissful existence. Except for Davidson and Dyer, the other 9 men had lifespans of around 300 years. They all eagerly engaged in exercise and health maintenance, striving to be in their best condition to accompany her throughout their lives. In the year 5080, her eldest daughter came of age, and Lu Soft, along with her 9 bonded husbands, each welcomed 10 daughters, while each of the 2 followers fathered a son. She chose not to bind with anyone else. becoming the empress with the fewest matched partners in interstellar history, as well as the woman with the fewest followers. Over her lifetime, she bore 91 daughters and 2 sons, alongside countless grandchildren. The story concludes here. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and liking to support us. Until we meet again for the next tale.